This afternoon. It is 2 o'clock on Tuesday, July 14th, and this is our special workshop where we'll call the meeting to order, and we will start with our invocation by Commissioner Harvey, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able to do so.
Let us bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this rain that we're getting, Father. We pray, Lord, that no accidents happen today, no damage of property. And Father, we thank you that every day we can make an investment in people's lives here in Putnam County. Father, we've moved Putnam County so far ahead in the past few years, and we don't want to let off the pedal now, Father. We want to continue the momentum that we're getting. And today's the first day of budget meetings. And Father, we just ask that you be there with us, give us direct guidance directly from your throne room, give us wisdom, Father, and direct all of our thoughts, all of our actions, and all of our words today, Father. And we give you praise, honor, and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So I know on our agenda we've got public comment on agenda items, but before we do that, I would really like for our Deputy Administrator to go through and give her presentation first, and then we can then open the floor up for further discussion. We will certainly take public comment and we'll welcome that, but I'd like to hear, because I want everybody before they make comments to truly be informed of what's going on as much as we know as of today. So with that, I'll let you lead us into your presentation. Is your mic on? Are y'all hearing her? I know, but we just want clarity.
Okay, clarity. Can you
There
hear
you
me
go.
now?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, a lot of information today. Today's going to be a little bit different than our prior budget years because we do have some external impacts that are happening. Please do stop and ask questions where we need clarity. We can always circle back around, but this is really data heavy, and so where we aren't all on the same page, please stop and let's ask some questions. So this is our first workshop when we talk about the fiscal year 27 budget development. We're going to start in talking about some legislative impacts that have just passed or are on the front of passing. The first, of course, being property tax reform, which is House Bill HJR 1F and Senate Bill 4F. The House bill, if approved, what we know today, we know it as the property tax reform. 60% of the voters are going to vote on it in November, and if approved, the law goes into effect, becoming effective January 1, 2027. It would increase homestead exemptions. It would raise the homestead exemption on non-school property taxes levied, setting it at $150,000 in 27 and $250,000 in 28. Non-homesteaded assessment caps would be annually initiated on non-homestead real property. It would change that cap from a 10% to a 5%, lessening the amount. It will constitutionally restrict how counties and municipalities spend their ad valorem dollars. Based on the Florida Department of Revenue's Revenue Estimating Conference, the general fund impact to Putnam County is estimated to be a loss of $15.7 million of reoccurring revenue. So throughout the state, what we're going to see in Putnam County is going to experience a little bit higher impacts simply because our homesteaded, one, we have more homesteaded properties, and two, our homesteaded property average value is less than most of our surrounding counties. And so what you're seeing is on year one, we're going to take a bigger impact in raising that cap of 150 than what you will see in St. John's, where the average homesteaded cost of a home may be $500,000.
Do we know,
So
you said that it was okay to interrupt, so is it?
Go right ahead.
Do we know what the 250 impact would be, or is that further in your slide?
So based on their revenue estimation conference, there's not a large difference between the 150 and the 250. We go from like 15.7 million to 16.2. Again, our hit is truly going to be primarily in that first year.
Okay.
Putting that into perspective, $15.7 million is about 25% of your generated reoccurring revenue. So think that a quarter of your budget is now going to be lost in that property reform bill. Additionally, Senate Bill 4F just has some additional provisions on what we're going to call max millage, how we treat the rollback, and what vote's going to be required to sustain a raise above that rollback rate. So Florida Associated Counties put out this statement, and I thought it was pretty indicative of where we're going to be. There's a lot of conversation as what the cut means, what it doesn't mean. I'm not here for the political arguments. However, what it does mean, it's going to be the single largest source of funding is going to be cut for your communities, with no current plan in place to replace it. And so counties are still going to be required to deliver core services. In counties where their budgets consist of initiatives that are not considered core services, then maybe they have opportunities to reduce those down and just deliver core services. In a fiscally constrained county like Putnam, we've historically only provided core services. And so we're going to be looking at a substantial cut and still trying to maintain service levels to something that our citizens have grown to expect in those core areas. Additionally, House Bill 1329 was passed. It requires tentative budgets to be posted at least 5 days before the hearings, which is increased from 2. Our current cycle is that you can post in your newspaper from 2 to 5 days before you move forward. This is going to be 5 days. That doesn't sound like a big impact all in and of itself, except for in our community when the Palatka Daily News only runs on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It's going to reduce the number of days that we can have budget hearings. And that's going to be true for all of us that have to arrange our budget hearings on non-conflicting dates. So statewide, the rule is the school board gets to pick first, and then the counties, and then the municipalities. So it's very possible that we may see some shift in budget hearing dates as we move forward. It's also going to mandate that tentative and adopted tentative and final budgets be posted in a downloaded format. And that local governments must conduct a public budget reduction workshop before adoption of the final budget and identifying strategies to reduce spending by 10% without affecting essential services, and publish those results on a recording online. The bill is also going to require quarterly employee compensation reports and annual budget development calendars to be posted online. It will also enhance transparency with budget amendments requiring extended retention rates and that they're posted online in addition. So the bill was signed in June. It becomes effective in January. It will not affect our budget development cycle for the current budget. However, it will affect the operation of 27. By January 1, 27, we'll need to be prepared to post those required reports, both in employee compensation as well as the quarterly spends. The current thought process in my peers, GFOA, the Government Financial Association of Officers, this extends to your constitutional offices because they are funded through the ad valorem tax process. And so we will need to ensure each of our constitutional offices are also prepared to meet these standards on a quarterly basis with the reports and the transparency that's being expected.
All right, Julian, we're going to stop for just a second.
Yep, you're welcome.
Commissioner Harvey has a question or comment.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This Transparency and Accountability Act, on the third bullet point, what are they looking at there, budget reduction workshop? Are they picked out a number like to the rollback rate? Do they pick out a funding level of 2019? Do we have a blue ribbon committee maybe that's set up that analyzes how to reduce the budget? What's the parameters we're going to be working at?
The only parameter in the statute to date is that you have to have a budget workshop where your end result is a net reduction in 10%.
Over last year's adopted budget. It's not the rollback rate from this year.
Correct. And so where you cut that 10%, how you cut that 10%, you don't have to adopt the 10% cut, but you do have to go through the exercise in a public forum for which we say, okay, here's our tentative, here would be a budget reduction workshop, here's what services would look like if we reduced the budget by 10%, or here's what the impacts would be, and then the board has to make some sort of cognizant decision as to how we're going to move forward.
Yeah. I just don't like the fact that we're going to be scaring our departments, we're going to be scaring our core services, we're going to run people off by doing that. I'm not in favor of any of that, but I mean, we got to deal with what we got to deal with. But I think it just scares the public, and it scares our workers, that EMS, fire, sheriff, I mean, these people are going to be going, well, is my job going to be cut? Maybe I need to find another job. And then we start losing people that we worked so daggum hard to build up.
So keep in mind, it's not going to affect this year.
I
It's
know.
going to affect next year. And as we begin to talk about next year, reform is going to have much more impact than this budget reduction workshop, I believe.
And for clarity, all constitutionals will have to do that, or do you vision that they'll come in front of us and we'll do it collaboratively, or do you think that each one will, a constitutional can come and sit here and have his, but if there's only one of those, so, right? So I see property appraiser here. Who's he going to come and talk to if he has a workshop? Is it us? Is it by himself? And
It's
he
just
just puts
us.
out?
It's just us. It doesn't extend to the constitutionals on that requirement.
Yeah, I believe the reporting requirements extend to the constitutionals, but the overall budget workshop would be, they're just a portion of us, right?
How can we say a 10% reduction if we can't reduce them by 10%?
You could, in that budget workshop, you could say, okay, each constitutional and the board, here's what it would look like if everybody reduces it by 10%. Right? That could be the exercise that's engaged upon.
Will we have their detailed budget by that time?
That'd be something that the board will have to direct and ask for through the course of the implication of this new law. The detailed budgets are going to have to be online, right? Effective January 1 in that first quarter. So by January, February, March, April, your board and all of your constitutional officers, if they comply with the law, are going to have a detailed budget online that's downloadable, that is summarized by division and also includes compensation reports. Again, remember, this law was just signed in June, and I expect there to be quite a bit of clarification that comes out over the next few months. However, this is where we are today.
All right, thank you for that clarity.
Okay, I added that to the list.
Well,
Siri also is appreciative of the clarity.
right.
House Bill 7031E. So just to set the pace here, just so we all are on the same page, the school district is currently managing a voter-approved $300 million construction bond that's supposed to be used for new schools, upgrading technology, enhancing safety. The district has just pulled its final $1 million tranche. The current guidance as we stand today is that the school district pays for the revenue commission collections related to that bond. In the special session, House Bill 7031E amended that to stipulate that the Board of County Commissioners is now statutorily required to pay the commissions collected on all school millages, both non-voted and voted. So today, we have been obligated to pay the non-voted debt, which after distribution 11, just so everybody knows, of a full year is 12 distributions, so we're pretty close. We're 1/12 or 1/11 of the 11/12 of the way. We've paid $872,000 for the school district's non-voted millage revenue commission collection. Now, next year, fiscal year 27, I'm going to have to pay all of the non-voted, I say I, the board, as well as the voted school bond, which will be an additional $400,000 that will come directly off the board's revenue and paid to the tax collector for her efforts in collecting the school bond. In that provision, in that House bill that passed, it did grant the tax collector the ability to waive the commission authorized in the paragraph specific to this particular voted bond. So I did reach out to Ms. Brenda Bridges, and she advised that no, the tax collector will not waive the commission on the voted debt millage, that fees and commissions are the mechanism by which her office is budgeted and operates, and that she cannot waive that. So that will be a pass-along expense to the Board of County Commissioners.
But in all reality, she's a fee-based organization. The tax collector, I don't want to say she, gives back money to the Board of County Commissioners General Fund at the end of the year, surplus, if you will. So it could be a washout, or it might not be a negative 400,000. It could be, but we won't see an increase back to our bottom line. That's the problem.
So it will absolutely be a negative impact on the front. Remember, givebacks are done in the end.
Right.
So of this year, or of last year, there was only 1/3 of the bond that was drawn at that time, so she was only collecting revenues on 1/3. The commission collection was approximately $160,000, and she gave back 14 to the school board. So certainly, a large portion of those dollars is not given back.
Okay, good.
Since she's fee-based, does that mean that some of these rules don't apply to her? As far as compensation reports and detailed budget, or is that question still up in the air?
That's questions for somebody with a JD behind their name.
Gotcha. Okay.
House Bill 967, the lesser of the bills that are going to impact us this year. This stipulates that every single division that we have that has a financial transaction associated with it has to be available to take electronic payment. So the infrastructure needed to sustain credit card terminals and debit card terminals and online payments now have to be purchased and implemented in those systems, maintained quickly by January 1st. So that will mean animal control, library services, public works, anyone who takes a fee for any county service will now not be allowed to only take cash or check. They will have to have a provision to take an electronic form of payment.
Which is going to cost us another few percent.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the hits just keep coming, don't they?
I'm here for the good news today.
I'm telling you.
Okay. Somebody's got to bring it to you. Still with me?
Yep, we're still good, I think. I don't see
So
any-
let's talk about fiscal year 27. Our property values from the property appraiser have come in. You'll see that your final fiscal year 26 assessed value was about 7.7 billion, and we're going to start 27 at about 8.17 billion. So we did see a growth of about 6.2% in those values, which is great news. The scenario on the screen assumes that we retain the same millage rate. We do have to account for the impact to Certainty's Economic Development Grant. So currently fiscal year 27's value from the property appraiser associated with the project is about $256 million. Of that, assuming that they meet all of the conditions of the Economic Development Grant, then they would be entitled to about $1.3 million of that revenue to be returned to them through that Economic Development Agreement. We will then see about $2.7 million overall in growth and net revenues for your general fund revenues. Now, your state of Florida has not released our revenue estimates yet, although I do expect historic trends are going to continue. We're going to see very small incremental growth in some of our like BPP surplus sales tax dollars. We're going to see negative trends continue in your gas taxes and your communications taxes.
And why is that? Do we know? Just that's the way
So
it's
there's a lot
written?
of theories. The gas tax premise is when gas prices rise, you traditionally see less commission because it's not a percent, it's a flat. And so although you paid more at the pump, traditionally people will cut out non-necessary trips and will buy less gas.
I gotcha.
Same thing's happening in the communications tax. Some of our new methods of communication are not applicable to those taxes. And so what you see is an emergence of decreasing revenues generated by those two venues.
Commissioner Harvey, you recognized?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julianne, additional 2.7 million, that's kind of a misnomer, correct? If we stay on the current funding mechanism that we do for our constitutionals, they're going to see a rise in their revenues. So it's
We're going
not,
to talk about that in just a minute.
but it's not, so our general fund is not going to see 2.7 million if
We're-
we stay with those levels.
So your general fund's going to start with a $2.7 million growth. And then I promise over the next few slides, we're going to get right into what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions before we move on? So just big picture, when we look at your ad valorem dollar, for every dollar that the county collects, think about it in the form of a dollar. 53 cents off the top goes to support and sustain the Putnam County Sheriff's Office operations. 5 cents sustains the property appraiser, 4 cents the clerk of court, 2 cents the supervisor of elections, and 36 cents remains for all remaining board functions.
And out of that 36% is our fire and EMS.
Is your EMS, not your fire. You have a
Okay.
fire fund that contributes towards the fire expenses.
Okay?
What are some other typical items in that 36%?
Oh, she just.
So when we look at that 36% and
There
what
she
the
is.
board is charged, those functions that have to be sustained, we look at things like the county medical examiner's office, state mandated, the judicial system, the state's attorney's office, the public defender, court admin, courthouse support, human services, your Medicaid and your HCRA payments, your CRAs, pilot programs, commission payments to the tax collector, supporting the county commission as a department, county attorney, administration, budget office, information technology, human resources, building and grounds, purchasing, veteran services, building departments, planning and zoning, codes enforcement, animal services, emergency management, mosquito control, emergency medical services, drainage, parks and recreation, library services, the ag extension office, and covering any fund deficiencies for which we have historically for our county has been in the transportation and utilities department.
So where does debt service fall under that?
Well, thankfully, our general fund doesn't have any debt service due to the great financial advocacy of our board. We do have debt service on our utilities. Our wastewater and water fund does have debt. However, the BPP is pledged for that debt, and so that debt comes out of BPP.
And the jail.
Also comes out of BPP.
Okay.
Yes, but the problem is that BBP is going to run out in a few years, and unless the voters approve it, it all comes back to general fund.
That's correct. So our audit finding a few years ago, more than a few years ago now, time passes, was that your BPP is scheduled to run out unless renewed. And so actually what we're having to do is make double payments. We make one payment for the debt and we put one payment in essentially a reserves account that's reserved for future debt payments. And that's kind of how we solidified the audit finding. Now I'm going to tell you, even those dollars that are in the reserve are not going to sustain debt payments through the life of the debt that we already have on the water and wastewater plants.
And the
hope-
jail, including the jail.
Including the jail. The hope is that obviously the water and wastewater divisions become self-sustaining in that they can cover their debt, but that we have not seen that day yet.
But we do have additional capacity with water and wastewater to support moving in that direction without further investment.
We have additional capacity in water. This board has already allocated the dollars to extend capacity in wastewater. So we're actively working through the process of the wastewater expansion, which will expand capacity substantially, but of course then obviously that brought another debt that we're going to have to repay at some point.
Right. Gotcha.
Still with me?
Yep.
Do you want to wait?
Oh.
Okay, so let's begin talking about the constitutional officer appropriations. So I was requested to put together two scenarios. The first scenario assumes our historic percent distribution of the net revenues, only reducing it by the economic development incentive. And so essentially what we do is take and look at the constitutional office the percent of ad valorem that it was allocated the year prior, and then we apply that percent to the new growth, and that would become the fiscal year 27 appropriation. Now, as part of the statutory requirements, we also, prior to this distribution, simply because of timing, so if you will, when I say that, the statute requires the constitutional offices to submit to me a budget request by June 1st. That is also the time for which the property appraisers' certified values come in. So those forever overlap. So understanding that the constitutionals did not have the certified values when they make their requests, what you have is in the far left column, where we started in fiscal year 26, that was their allocated budget. The percent of the budget there is next. The percent scenario of additional funding they would receive under the percent basis, which then leads you to what fiscal year 27 total appropriation would be. And then the next column is what they requested blindly, right? Remember that. And then, of course, the last column is the net difference in what the requested appropriation and the proposed under the percent calculation would be. That bottom scenario assumes that the constitutional officers only receive an additional increase equitable to make their staff raises possible. So for each of your constitutional offices, when asked this question, they all defaulted to a 3% request for COLA, with the exception of the sheriff's office. They have a little bit of a hybrid proposed COLA in their scenario as we stand. And so what you'll see there is if we were to increase the scenario by a staff increase only, so meaning we took personnel cost only, the growth in personnel, you would see the different appropriations there fiscal year 27, and then again, the same versus what their initial requested was, and of course the net difference is going to be a little bit greater than where we started.
So Julianne, Madam Chair. So we've already gotten the budgets from the sheriff's office is what I'm hearing, and they're requesting 1.158 million more?
No, they're requesting
No,
2
sure,
million.
I'm sorry, go ahead. They're requesting almost 2 million more
Okay.
from us. Now, of course, that doesn't count their other revenue generating sources
Sure.
that are outside of us.
Okay.
Hold this up for just a second.
Yep. Take your time.
So technically, right now, if everything stays the same on the top half, even with the sheriff's department requests, they're going to be $931,000 short. Is that
Of their request.
right? Is that right?
So under scenario 2,
No, up top.
up top, under scenario 1, if we did the historic breakdown of percents, what we would be allocating them according to the percent basis would be a net negative $931,000 based on their ask.
And I'll go ahead and tell you where the second portion came from, because I went to Julianne and said, hey, what if we all just hold the line? Like, can we just hold the line and not make any decisions as far as, well, we'll have to make decisions, but what if we give everybody the same budget they had last year? And except for they get a 3% COLA, and then we have to sit down and go through our line item and go through the workshop and go through our line item budget and say what we can do and what we can't do. I think it's prudent to go through that exercise rather than waiting till January. But again, it's going to be up to the voters to decide what we do, and whether this tax reform passes or not. But that's why she ran these numbers, was because I had said that was at my request.
It's a smart request.
Thanks. All right, I'm good.
So some reoccurring external expenses that we're seeing, for which we have no oversight over. So the medical examiner's office increase for 27 is up to a total of $828,000. That's about a 3 to 5% operationally. What we do need to be prepared for is that in fiscal year '28, we expect the impact of the office expansion project for which they're undergoing. So the medical examiner's office is shared by Putnam, St. John's, and Flagler. Historically, we run about 25 to 30% utilization, which means we pay about 25 to 30% utilization of the total bill. So essentially what happens is every year during budget season, we get a reconciliation of utilization by the 3 counties, and then based on your percent utilization, then your allocation for the following year is equal to that percent. So they have currently a planned office expansion to add on about a 4,600 square feet of additional space, which will become their new lab, an additional 1,300 square foot of a sally port, and then to renovate about 3,300 square foot. And their estimated cost of construction is $1,000 a square foot. They are proposing an amortization schedule. Tentatively, that amortization schedule looks like a 20-year cycle on the building and a 10-year cycle on the equipment. In some respects, we don't have a lot of voice
vote
on these particular caveats. Administration has met with St. Johns County and expressed our concern as to the uncertainty of where the future lies and how we go about this project. However, St. Johns County has agreed at this time to front the money. We're just not really sure what the amortization or the payback schedule would look like or the contingencies to that.
Okay.
Medicare, Medicaid, HCRA, our indigent care. We're going to see about a 3.7% increase in that cost, comes straight from the state of Florida. They tell us that you will pay it or they will deduct your state revenues, so we have to pay it. Motorola, fiscal year '27, we're going to see about $1 million, just under that, new reoccurring expense that's going to be required every year for tech upgrades and maintenance. Now, it is important to remember that Motorola covers all of our first responder networks. So that's the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, that's the system that the municipal police departments run off, of course, your fire rescue divisions. So that to keep that system up and operational, we're going to see reoccurring dollars need to be allocated at this point forward.
I have a question.
Yeah, me too.
You go first.
That 946 or whatever it is, I don't have my glasses, there it is. Is that shared amongst the sheriff's office, municipalities, EMS, or is that footed solely by the county?
It's footed solely by the county. Sustaining your public safety radio system has always been footed solely by the county, and none of those partners have ever been obligated to pay it. In short, because if I ask them to pay it, they're going to ask me for the money to pay it so that they can pay me the money I've asked them for.
I see where you're going with that, Commissioner, and I'm struggling with this one too, because I think municipalities collect their own share of taxes. I mean, I have a building in the city and I have to pay, and I'm not picking on the city of Palatka today, even though it feels like it to some people. They collect tax revenue.
Fire fees?
And fire fees
Yes.
and all of these other things. So, I mean, and I don't know if it's even worth the exercise, and if I know what's the juice is worth the squeeze, is that what they're saying? To look at, out of this number, how many of these are funded for city police or city services, like Palatka Police Department? I mean, if it's minimal, but basically they can say, we need a radio, and they get a radio, and
We don't buy their radio.
Okay.
This is to sustain the system.
so you couldn't proportionally, it'd be hard to proportionally share that, because what would you do? It's the same
We
citizens.
could, I mean, sure.
You got user
right?
licenses and
Yeah.
number of users that you have that. for
But I
each-
just wanted to clarify, this was not to buy a radio for the Palatka
Yes,
PD.
no, yeah.
That, they buy their own radio.
Okay,
But this is the software upgrades and the maintenance on the system itself.
no, I think that's a discussion we will have.
I agree. I mean, at this point in time, when we're looking at cutting services, for our needs, we need some help from those guys that we support. So we're gonna have to work together on that.
As we discussed, the $400,000 that will be additional school board revenue collection, and the asterisk there is that number could go up if their non-voted millage increases this year. So we are uncertain at this time what that's going to look like. Your CRA payments are going to increase by about $100,000. And then liability and property insurance premiums, which again, we pay for all constitutionals and the board, always see a increase, but we do not have those premiums back. So back to Commissioner Harvey's question in the very beginning, when we talk about this magic $2.7 million, on this one screen, we probably could say, well, that money is all gone at this point, right? Between your constitutionals, certainly between your constitutionals and the dollars for which just these 6 items are going to impose of new expenses that are not currently have anything to do with one of your board functions or your board
You could
departments.
probably add another one called health insurance,
So
We don't know what that's going to do, right?
we don't, now, knock on wood, currently, we have used reserves, but not reoccurring dollars in the past to sustain our difference in what's needed in health insurance and what we have. So the good news there.
So the that's a 3.7% of the 2.7 for the Medicaid?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And the TIF money, the CRA money, that's a pass-through? I mean, we don't have the option to take that money, right?
No, you don't.
Okay, all right, well,
Well,
just.
and what-
You don't have an
thought I'd
option on
ask.
pretty much any of these.
Yeah, we have no choice, but we only have one voice on that board as well.
Yeah, I get that too. Okay,
Okay. BOC expense factors. Obviously, every year, at this time in looking through budget submissions, we don't have anything that's out of the ordinary new programs or services that any division's asking to be funded. So all we really truly have is the normal contractual service adjustments that we see on goods and services. Obviously, they're budgeting for a little higher fuel costs. Medical supplies always have a little bit of an increase, those things in that manner. Waste Pro has already requested their contractual CPI increase, which you'll see come through your solid waste adjustment fee. And then obviously we're going to see an increase in general fund supplements to transportation and utility funds, in part due to just the fact that those costs of goods specific to the transportation fund are mostly fuel or petroleum based. And so you're seeing a higher cost there happening. And then, of course, we are proposing a staff COLA of 3%. The schedule of each fund is by itself on the right side there. So if you'll see the row label, that's the fund. So they're all itemized with some of them having their unique funding sources. But of course, there's a small impact all the way to all funds, and then the net impact at the bottom for all employees to have that 3% COLA there at the bottom.
and just so everybody knows, the state of Florida did a 2.8.
That's correct.
So we're trying
to
if
stay-
this were to go forward, it's nothing more than what the state's already providing to their own employees.
Nope, and very important for our employees. We've done great work in trying to keep them competitive, and I
Retention.
can't advocate enough to continue to try to keep them competitive where we can. So believe that to be a vital importance. So let's talk about the fire fund. Some things that we need to remember about the fire fund is tax reform is going to impact them equally. About 25% of their reoccurring operating revenue is going to be lost. Now for them, that doesn't sound like a lot because it's 1.75 million. But when you think about that's a quarter of their revenue generation, that's a lot. What we're also going to have to compete with is we were awarded the SAFER grant. 26 was our first year. And so that grant is a step grant, meaning 26, they covered about 75%. 27, they're going to cover about 75%. And then 28, when we see the implications of tax reform, we're also going to see that step way down, and they're only going to cover 35%. The SAFER grant is what allowed us to onboard those 12 additional fire rescue staff members last year to keep up with our services growing demand. It's very important. And so while we're going to have decreasing revenues, we already know we're going to have increasing personnel costs just by that SAFER grant stepping down. Some other things to really be aware of in the fire fund is that in 25, we had a total of about 17,544 calls for service in 25. In 26, where we are today, we're trending to end the year at 19,658. So that's an additional over 2,000 calls for service year over year. And that increased pressure and demand on the system is going to trickle down to people and equipment and systems and all of the things. The fire fund, in respect to capital, their operational revenues already do not sufficiently cover the capital needed. So we're taking from the fire fund savings account or from the general fund in past years to purchase the necessary capital to keep those engines and fire apparatuses on the road. And so this is going to be compounding, reform is going to compound this fund's deficiency when we really look at sustainability of the fire fund. Additionally, in 2025, House Bill 929 was amended the state statute to read that they're encouraging firefighter employers, that'd be us, to implement work schedules that do not require firefighter employees' normal schedule shift to exceed 42 hours per work week. While the state legislator put that really cool word in there that says encouraged, most what we deal with in our industry is while we can sit here and say we can't afford it, the people around us are finding ways to embrace it and incorporate it, which increases the pressure and demand on our people, as well as administration, to try to come up with funding and mechanisms by which we too can work towards achieving this 42-hour work-life balance schedule for our fire rescue personnel. So in doing so, you know, the current methodology, if you will, around the state, and I've talked to my counterparts as to how do you get there? How do we get from where I am today to where you are? And they have cooler money than I do, but the mechanisms is all the same, right? So the prescribed right now, best theory is to adopt a D shift and rotate into a 24/72 schedule. In order to do so, the main thing that you have to have is additional personnel. Now, obviously, that doesn't always happen overnight. Some surrounding counties around us have implemented Kelly days to start building in your D shift because it kind of alternates who gets that schedule. But long and short, as we talk about the future of the fire fund and what needs to be funded, we need to make sure we at least understand the environment that's in front of us and the threats and opportunities that exist for our service.
All right, Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple things, Julianne. Years ago, we had firefighters standing here really worried about their general health because we were working them way too much. They were working way too much overtime, and they were making money, but they weren't having a quality of life.
Sure.
So this 42-hour work week, and I'm not opposed to it. I think it's wonderful if we can do it. That's going to reduce some of their overtime out. Some of them are struggling now. So when you keep trying to, and we all, I mean, I was a business owner. I hated overtime. I thought it was bad. But in fire service, some people are just, you have to stay over. You have to do the job. Hurricane's coming. Everybody, all hands on deck. I get that. So it's going to really hurt some people tremendously just to think that that's going to happen. Now, they might have a side job that they do on the side, but that's their private business, not mine. When we look at the millage rate, and I should know this, and I did know it at one time, we can go up to what, 2 mills on that? Yeah. And the reason we kept it down was because when we raise our millage up, we can put a municipality over the 10 mills. And by law, we can't do that, right? Or something like that.
True, except for none of your municipalities are currently participating in the fire assessment.
Right.
fee.
Interlochen doesn't participate.
Crescent City
and
doesn't
Crescent
participate.
City doesn't
And
participate.
Palatka has its own.
So with that in mind, you know, we could raise up to 2, but here's the problem I'm having. It's the same pair of pants. We're just taking out of different pockets is what we're fixing to start doing. And if we raise our millage up, which probably we should be doing, but we had this talk years ago about, well, if we did that, Interlochen will be over the 10 mills. Well, the property tax reform said something to the effect of, we can go up to 10 mills, remember? And then before you come begging to the legislators for help. So we very well might see a need for us to raise our fire assessment, our fire fund millage up to make sure that our firefighters are well taken care of here and the capital that they need. So as bad as we hate to raise taxes, is this a tax or is this a fee for service? That's going to be a question to the, but I think it's very important. When you dial 911, you want them to come. There's no doubt. And we all, I probably haven't dialed 911 in years that I can recall. But I want you to be able to. I want my neighbor to be able to, and I want to be able to when I need to do it.
So raising the millage on the fire side is certainly an option and a solution today. But remember that reform is going to impact the ability for it to generate that increased millage to generate revenue today. It still will generate more revenue, right? But it's going to be on your non-homesteaded properties and your commercial properties that are going to end up with that, which is a mechanism for sure.
And my concern, I'm off topic, so I'm going to get off for just a second. When does our businesses, when do our Georgia Pacifics, when do our Lafarge, when does these companies say, we can't pay anymore? We're already paying 62% of our ad valorem taxes, our major businesses are. We're just not going to do it anymore. And they're going to pick up and go. And then what are we going to look like at that point? It's going to be a very delicate dance is what I'm trying to say here. We got to be very, very careful in this. But our first responders deserve to be taken care of, no doubt about it. Thank you.
Agreed.
So I'll comment. Your very first portion of this is tax reform impact would be a revenue loss of 1.75 million. So what I would probably like to see is has been, is from my understanding, a self-sufficient fund, correct?
Outside of, it does not sustain its own capital.
Okay. So as we move forward, what would we need to make it to continue to sustain itself as we go through this exercise of a loss of revenue of 1.75 million and then in the 684? So that's one thing, is I need to know what that number is whenever as we go forward. And then second, when we talk about the additional calls and the 12 positions that we took in, did the 12 positions cover the additional calls, or did the 12 positions come in after we've estimated? What's the time frame on that? You see what I'm asking you?
I do. So let's talk about 12 positions, right? So when we all sit here and talk about 12 positions, we seem like there's 12 people showing up every day. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is we got to divide that by 3. So that 12 really produced 4 people a day, right?
Okay.
So we added an additional ambulance on this past year, and then we added a fire truck that's going to start July 20th. So there, as much as we want to say we made a big move, right, in the right direction, we're still behind because when we had 8 ambulances and we were running out, we was like, well, man, we put the 9th ambulance on, we're going to make great progress, right? Well, one thing we did is put on a 9th ambulance and golly, we need a 10th one, right? Because it truly has. Where it's coming from, we're working on that now. We sat back there today and goes, where's this extra volume coming from? So I actually asked Mr. Ritchie in GIS to start coming up with some kind of map of, hey, events are happening here. What's going on in this particular area? Because we don't know, right? What's driving, where we had 46 calls a day before, now you're producing somewhere around 55 calls a day. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when your transport time's 2 hours, by the time you get from Crescent City to Palatka, get your patient offloaded at the ER, the paramedic gets to write the ticket, gets back into the respective zone, 2 more calls have happened. You've shifted a unit from town to try to go cover. So as we talk about it, it has got to increase enough around us in order for the call. So, I mean, an easy number, you look at it now and you go, okay, you ran 17,500 calls last year with let's just say at that point, 8, 9 ambulances. That means they can run roughly about 1,500 calls per unit per year is what they're running now. And we're running out, right? So what we have to do is when we hit those thresholds, like 1,500 calls, we probably need to look at adding an additional ambulance. The problem is we're running the same county that we had. The first ambulance we added was this year since, when I don't know when Rescue 14 went on, probably in the mid-2010-ish range, I'm going to say. So we went 10 years without adding one. So we've added all of those additional calls without adding those units, right? And I get it. It was hard governing through those times because there was no money to be had. However, we have to start trying to make up some of that ground that we lost back then because, and it's a bad time to be trying to make up ground, guys. Listen, I totally understand where we are, but we have to have the conversation, right? I mean, so our citizens expect when they dial 911 to have a unit there within a respectable amount of time. It's not like our brothers, you know, we can't say, well, we'll catch them in a few minutes, right? Or we can delay a call 30, 45 minutes. We can't do it. I mean, when somebody dials 911 because they're not breathing, they're having a cardiac event or whatever, we have to get a unit to them. We can't delay it. I can't go to a cut later. I mean, we got to send, now we can prioritize and maybe divert a unit, but we still got to send coverage. So what we have to understand is as these numbers increase and the call volume goes up, we have to take the numbers up with them. So to answer your question shortly, no, we didn't really add anything on. The only thing we did was added 2 units to help narrow down some coverage, some gaps, right? Because you had a gap coming from Floor Home to Johnson to Interlock, and there's a big gap in between, and that's where you add that unit in, right? So we spent a lot of time sending the unit from East Palatka on 207. Every time there would be 2 calls in the South Putnam County, that unit was having to pick up from East Palatka, run to Crescent City or Pomona Park, Satsuma for coverage. So we added the additional unit in the south end to try to help keep that truck somewhere in its respective zone. But today, I mean, we had units from Floor Home answering calls in Georgetown. So I mean, once the unit, when we're all sitting at home, it's really easy, right? But as the day goes by, it gets geographically hard to keep those units in a thing. So I mean, it's really easy in town because they come up here and are able to drop patients off at the hospital, get cleared, and get back. But I mean, when you start talking about your very far outlying areas, it's very, very difficult.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Grimes has to say. You know, my family works in geriatric health care, and their load has increased as our population increases and the retirees continue to migrate to Florida. I think it's a problem across the entire state. And we're going to continue to play catch up. It's you know, we're not seeing an influx of 20-something workers. We're seeing an influx of 60, 65-year-old retirees who require additional health care and additional transportation. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. And we have to figure out how to support our fire and EMS staff so that we can support our community.
Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
So over the years, it appears to me now the things that we tried to do by buying equipment out of BPP money for fire safety, we probably should have kept it in the fire fund and just install the,
So,
'cause I always want to do a little profit center. And what we're seeing now is we're buying things outside of the fire fund to help the fire fund stay at an artificial low of 1.1 mil.
So let me not take away from anything this board in the past has done, because we went through years where we didn't have 2 pennies to make
Right, I
it
agree,
through,
yeah.
okay? And so part of what we did was fiscally responsible.
Right.
We looked at all of our available options and we did the best we could with them. And we did great work with that,
Sure
right?
we did.
We got the necessary equipment. Was it everything the division needed or wanted? No, but we certainly have sustained their operations. Even with respect to the personnel side of it, we've done great things. I don't ever want to take away from what you all have done and allocated, but in the same respects, at the pace at which the demand on the service is growing.
Sure.
And the external factors of the service, and recognizing what's best for the industry, right? Some of that legislation is essentially recognizing what the best practice is or believed to be for the industry in their work-life balance and what they're seeing in aftermath, right? And so essentially, we did great things. We have done great things as a collective board and a team to get fire service where it is. but we should not neglect to continue to take the steps to try to right that ship and put it into something that is a great outcome for the fire rescue service. And there are still some needs on the table. That's essentially what I can tell you. And so, I don't want you to feel like what we're saying to you is we shouldn't have put it in BPP. We
No,
should.
I'm not
BPP
saying-
exists for quality of life issues, and certainly fire rescue equipment is a quality of life issue.
But if it was a business, think of it as a business in my mind. And here we are charging the consumer out there, our taxpayers. But yet we're taking from this to buy this equipment when we're not really showing the true numbers of what it really costs us to do business. Kind of like our garbage.
I see
We
what he's
know what
saying.
garbage
Yeah.
costs, we divide it by 33,000, end of story. This is what it costs.
I get
And I
you.
think that, you're right, we did things to help out. But at the end of the day, right now, we're not looking at the true numbers of where we should be looking at. And not saying I wanted to increase fire millage on our taxpayers. I'm not saying that. So I think we did the right thing. It's just a matter of now, we got some really hard choices coming up to fund the good men and women of fire service. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just trying to understand and wrap my head around some of these things. Mr. Grimes, when we talk about the call-outs, are all of these emergency calls, or sometimes are these due to our residents or constituents lacking reliable transportation but needing transportation
We're
for
going
physical
deep.
care? Still transport them if they call 911, even though it isn't an efficient or proper use of our fire service? The reason I'm asking is it's difficult for some folks in our community to get transportation to where they need to go for a doctor's appointment or a doctor's visit if they're sick, and it's just as easy for them to dial 911 as it is per se to find some alternative means of transportation.
Well, from my position, it's hard for me to tell you what's an emergency in your world versus what's an emergency in mine, right? So
Sure.
when somebody picks up that phone and calls 911, it's an emergency to them, right? I've been to places that dial 911 for a pediatric with a temperature that had a Cadillac Escalade sitting in the front yard, right? Because they needed a moment in their in their life where they needed somebody that had a higher level of care than what they did, or they thought they could get to the hospital. So a lot of times our folks go out there. Maybe to them it's not an emergency, right? But they work in it every day. But it's an emergency to the person that picked up the phone to call, right? And so whether it's reliable transportation, I'd have really truly had to go back to the folks on the street and ask, is it really, are we picking up people that don't have a vehicle? I don't think it really is. I think maybe it's just a mechanism. Sometimes maybe there's a false sense of security out there. If you dial 911, you're the first one to get seen at the ER, right? Well, that's always been a plague, right? Maybe not necessarily true. These guys will tell you they probably get to the hospital and they say put them in, wait, or fast track was what it used to be called, or and kind of in a staging area waiting on a doctor to get to them. But I can't answer the question of whether it's reliable transportation. I mean, I think people understand that there's an ambulance out there. They're going to come get them and they'll take them and they'll be able to treat them and get better level of care than what somebody could do by just driving their person to the hospital. I mean, because our folks do have a very unique set of skills, right? I mean, they have the ability to fix things in the back of their trucks or diagnose things and get them to an appropriate facility that we may not have as a general person sitting at home, right? So they can detect if they're having a heart attack or maybe potentially having a stroke, or they have diabetes problems, and they may transport them, they might make a decision en route to take them to a appropriate medical facility, right? Which takes them out of the county for another 2 hours, but it did the best for the citizens. So to put it down to one thing of transportation, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to ask, but I don't know that we even track those demographics, right? We just track, the different call volumes. I mean, that's what we're working on now, is trying to pull some information off the backside of their reporting, going, hey, what are we going to? And right, we're going to pull it from dispatch codes and say, is it falls? Is it medical emergencies? Is it cardiac related? What is it, right? So maybe it's a program we can launch to bring some of it down. We did that through our community paramedic program. Yep. I mean, if we didn't implement programs like that to try to help the citizens, where would that number be today, right? Because
right, that's the reason I asked the question. It's not about today's decision. It's about long term down the road, finding maybe an alternative solution to supplement this, or maybe curtail some of these calls that could have gone a different direction. But no, we're definitely not discounting the fact that if you're calling 911, it's because you don't know what's going on, and it doesn't matter what it costs. You want the best care for your family member at that point in time. But I'm just wondering if there was an influx or an opportunity that some of those transports might go a different direction so that we could offset some of the the care givers going to a more pertinent call.
Yeah, I mean, and
So I just didn't know what the occurrence was of that. and
I don't know. I mean, I'd rather go back and try to do some research on
Sure.
figure out if it was a ride problem, but I don't know that that mostly is.
Okay. Well,
So, but
that's
mean,
why I
we
asked,
can-
'cause you
yeah.
know. You
I
guys
really
know.
don't know the answer to that particular question. So, I mean, we could absolutely try to find out.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Grimes, in that number of 2,114 additional calls over the year, how much can you, I'm sure we're tracking our community paramedicine program. So how many of those calls are inside that number?
There's probably a few, but a lot of times the community paramedic will attach back to a run that they've already ran on a 911 call. Like if they're doing a follow-up, they may attach themselves to the type of call. I don't see the community paramedics really pulling a great big bunch of control numbers. Chief Back could correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't think they're pulling a bunch of control numbers. So if we really did pull a control number for your community paramedic, that number would be higher.
Okay.
Because as the visits are going out and seeing or whatever, just doing follow-up checkups, we're not necessarily pulling a control number or writing a ticket for that, right? These are actually 911 calls where our 911 system went and saw a patient, fire, car wreck, whatever, right? So even if you looked at your community paramedic, I can get you community paramedic data. And that's one of the reasons why you guys approved it a couple months back, was to go to our new reporting software, because they were one of the only ones that had a community paramedic module inside of it, right? So right now we're having to basically old school Excel spreadsheet keeping track of community paramedic work until the new program gets launched, which I think Ms. Hannah could probably tell me because she's sitting in the audience today. It's coming soon because she's been our liaison trying to get that put together. So then we'll be able to really track community paramedicine a lot better.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great discussion. I was hoping somebody would go there. All right.
Transportation fund. Operational expenses related to the function of public works. So this is, our transportation fund is what covers the personnel and the people behind your mowing, your grading, your ditch maintenance, your true projects and functions out there. In 26, the fund deficiency was negative $2.3 million, of which about $470,000 was capital equipment for the Public Works Division. My projection for 27 is that they're going to be about $2.4 million deficit, plus any necessary capital equipment that is needed. One of the decision matrix that we have to make for Public Works this year is the graders that we leased 5 years ago are going to come up. We're going to have two options. We're either going to buy them out, the buyout number is $630,000, or we're going to choose to lease them again for about $300,000 a year over the course of 5 years. And in 5 years, we don't own them, so we're back into the same perpetual, every year there's a required payment on them. I do believe that if we were to go to a capital buy process of buying them out, that we may get more than 5 years of use on those graders, and speaking with Mr. Grimes. So although the upfront investment may be more, you may not have an obligatory annual payment on them to perpetual eternity. Gas tax revenues is another way that we fund some transportation activities. However, as we talked about, we're seeing incremental decreases in those reoccurring gas taxes. So the road and drainage project funds is a capital one where that's where your second local option gas tax is received. And we do the resurfacing activities out of that fund, as well as the BPP, which is a capital fund. And in historic, we have allocated about 60 to 65% of the reoccurring revenues to either dirt to pave or resurfacing activities. Now, the only anomaly was that last year this board chose to take a pause on the new dollars going into dirt to pave resurfacing, and we took care of some other board initiatives because a couple of things. We had some built up money in those dirt to pave and resurfacing dollars. We couldn't spend them as fast as they were coming in. And so this year we'll need to make some tough decisions as to how we're going to allocate, remembering that your BPP has to be capital in nature, and it does have the debt payments that we've already discussed here. So we have the jail and the water wastewater plants, and then of course, based on the audit findings, we have to accrue a future payment for when that BPP plan ceases to exist unless revoted in.
So as we move forward with this discussion regarding the grader equipment, it's hard to make a decision when I don't know what the condition of those graders are. Like, I know you mentioned you thought they would last 5 years, but I mean, are they like been maintained and they're top of the line and everything's great on them, or we buy them and which I know there's no crystal ball, and you don't have a crystal ball and I don't have a magic wand, so let's just say that right now. But it's hard to make that decision. It's like buying a used car, right? And so is the transmission about to go out? I don't know.
I crunch numbers. I'm gonna turn that over to him.
I mean, you got any? I know it's hard.
So
right?
it is absolutely hard, but as we're sitting here today and we're talking about tax reform and tough decisions, right? I would rather say, you know what, we'll make it through and we'll figure it out. And if I got to go turn wrenches on a grader, I will, okay? But we're talking $335,000 a year of reoccurring value for a road grader, or I'm going to sit here and tell somebody they're not going to have a job for the same $335,000. I'm going to work on a road grader, right? So the road graders today is okay. We've had some like minor cosmetic things where we've hit a limb and broke some mirrors and stuff off, but other than that, we really haven't truly had any problems. So I mean, you sit there and look, I mean, and where the board was versus where the board is today, they couldn't afford all those road graders back then, and the fleet had got down to a point, you know, where you had to do this. Well, today we may be in a little different position where we go, okay, maybe we can cut out $335,000 a year of operating expenses and go, can we buy one every other year? Like kind of like we do with an ambulance. We don't lease ambulances. We buy them and then we run them and then we put them on a capital replacement cycle. That's why capital replacement cycles are important, right? Don't deviate too far from it, you know, because that way we know, hey, in 2 years you're going to get another road grader and it's going to go to Interlochen and it's going to grade roads for the next 10 years. And then while you're replacing the other additional 5, because we have 6 today. So as you put those on a capital schedule, maybe they do last. Maybe you lease 3 and buy 3, right? I mean, that's the kind of where we need to talk, because will they last 5 more years? Sure, we'll make them get through 5 more years. But are they going to last 5 more years without you buying any? No. I mean, if that's the conversation we're going to have, are we not going to buy any and just hope these last 5 more years, and then in 5 years from now we're stuck with a fleet of wore-out road graders? I mean, and we're going to have to sit here and look at trying to buy 6 of them at probably at that time $2 million for 6 graders. That's not wise either. But if we work together and put a implementation plan in and say, hey, we're going to buy 6, and I mean, they're pretty decent machines still, we can get through. We buy one this year, and then we buy one next year, and we buy one, then half of our fleet's new. We got some reserve units, so when one does go down, it needs to come in for maintenance, because today if one goes down, you're just not grading, right? We don't have a backup unit sitting over there waiting for you know, so the roads are going to get neglected because we don't have a backup unit in the fleet to grade roads with, right? So like last year, you guys bought an additional mowing tractor, because when we broke down in mowing season, it was wise to have another tractor that you could go hook to, and it can be working as a 7th tractor, but you're never missing long-term for a citizen, right? So that would be another thing I'd highly suggest is putting it in a capital purchase plan of going, hey, we're going to buy one every year, every other year, whatever it is. And that way, if we do have to go through a year and go, oh, guys, it's just not there, we got other decisions we have to make, then those options are on the table. Because when we get to where we run such a percentage of payroll, right, was we're trying to do our core services and take care of our people, our operations sometime are a less percentage, and when you got to make a big cut, you know, you're looking at your people, and I don't like being in that position.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Helms. So we're looking at approximately $300,000 to buy out what we've got on the lease right now.
Well, I think that $630 for all 6 units.
$630
That would buy out all 6 grader units, right?
And they're all similar age?
They are, yes, sir.
Okay, and then we would start staggering those and attempting to phase them out. And, you know, I'm not sure if everybody knows, but Public Works has been pretty strategic with what they're doing too, as far as trying to focus some of our dirt to pave dollars in areas where they don't have to send the graders out to great distances within the community, and they try and locate them in a smaller concentrated area, thereby reducing wear and tear and travel on those. So I think we're kind of headed in the right direction on that.
I think, I mean, when we talked about it, and I don't want to take this too far out of, but we have 2 graders south. I think it's 2 west, 2 central, you know, for the most part, every day. But we did such a phenomenal job last year, and in my opinion, I mean, it's all of us worked together to get there, is when we did our road resurfacing projects last year, we actually took the recycled millings, that were a byproduct. Guys, we're saving 1% off of a contract. The last time we bid it out that way, we're saving 1% by not capturing our millings. We captured the millings off of the resurfacing project we put through in District 1 alone, and it was heavy because it was down there, and we all know that. But
District 1, right? that
Yes,
gets
sir,
all the
District
paving?
1.
Yes, sir, okay.
But we also resurfaced about 8 miles of roads. It's like 7.6 miles of roads that we took a byproduct and converted into a drivable surface, and we put an emulsifier on them and have really fixed some roads, right? And we're going to do more. So
gonna do
I
that
think
mill
we're about
again?
1 year away from potentially being able to say we can go to 1 grader down south, and maybe we could take that 3rd grader and shift it further out to where it's making a bigger distance. And I'm going to say it in District 4 because he has so many dirt roads that maybe we can get the grading frequency better there, right? As we're doing these projects, it's forethought of all of us sitting around going, how can we make this better, right? And the beautiful part about it is when we laid those millings down, they're laid at a 6-inch base and ready to go. So at any given moment, we can go in there, we can put a cap back on top of them get a paver to come in. So the base is already built for future dirt to pave, right? So, and I think these roads that we're doing and these residential streets with the millings with the emulsifier on them are going to last many years, and we won't have to touch them. We might have to go touch up the emulsifier or go fix a pothole here and there, but that's okay. But those are byproducts of a really aggressive resurfacing list of roads that needed to be done anyway.
Commissioner Newbold, you're recognized.
I know last year was a bit of an anomaly, but what traditionally have we been paying out in dirt to pave each year?
How much?
Yeah,
That's back to numbers.
more or less.
About what we're paying out in dirt to pave?
Yeah, traditionally.
About
About $5 million?
5 million
Yep, I mean, I
out
don't
of your
want,
dirt to pave, out
Yeah.
of your BPP, I'm sorry.
I tell you, we just have started with this experiment, but I mean, when we get in tight times, I'd be really open to cutting that dirt to pave. We could knock it out for a few years and just work our resurfacing with this milling program and save quite a bit for a limited period of time. I'm not saying don't ever do dirt to pave again, but while we're in a financial crunch, I mean, that's a real option because it's a tremendous improvement from a dirt road to a improved surface road.
Right.
Anyway, just a thought.
And we've talked about that for a long time, was dirt to an improved surface to pavement, right? Make it a cycle where we're in front of them building out improved surface roads. And last year was the first year we had the opportunity to implement it. Dirt to pave is a great thing. It really is. And I mean, there's a lot of roads in this county that still need to be done. I mean, there's not a doubt. But if we're making progress through, I mean, truly it was a byproduct, right? And I mean, can't remember what the number was. I'd have to ask Mr. Stout. We did several miles off of County Road 315 when we did the resurfacing in West Putnam. And we'll do some more when we do Palmetto Bluff. I mean, and these are all, if you think about it, these were all state-funded projects
Right.
that we got the millings back from that we're putting on our county roads that are doing a great job. I mean, and it was, I think we made a lot of progress in that in those over the last few years. And I think we got more to do.
Commissioner Harvey, you recognized. Oh my, here we go.
No, in all reality, guys, let me say this. We wouldn't be sitting here talking had 2 public works directors prior to the one we got now would have paid attention to these millings. I first got here, I said, guys, these companies are taking our millings and making money on us. Trust me. We're not rebidding this out. And they wouldn't believe me. You can't put millings down. You can't come back and rework them. You can't pave over them. There was all these reasons we couldn't, until finally we got the right people in the right seats who said, yeah, we can do that. We'd have been far, far ahead. And what our millings we found on the contract was less than 5% of the bid or something?
1%.
1%. It was a stupid number. And I knew we were getting hosed on it, but nobody paid attention to that. I brought that to the attention of them. I do want to caution, though, when we talk about West Putnam and the grading schedules out there, over 200 miles of dirt roads are outside the county maintenance system. Mm-hmm. They're done by MSBU. Mm-hmm. These people pay a fee to do their own roads. I paid the fee. I paid a fee to pave my road. County didn't pave my road. We all paid $215 for 15 years. I say that because there's an importance there that when I was president of the Homeowners Association and Kevin Dersher was here as a commissioner, we had a pilot project to do that, $25,000. We didn't expect the county to pick up and leave us. We thought we were going to augment the system. Didn't happen that way. They left. They took their graders and left and said, you're on your own now. So we're maintaining those miles. And that's why they get done almost every month, not every one of them. And then the conversation when I got here was, well, we're not going to let you pave a dirt road inside of an MSBU unless the whole MSBU gets done. Got 95 miles of an MSBU road, West Putnam. How do you pave 95 miles at one time? Can't do it. There's no way unless you charge the citizens and have a big bond rate. So this was reality back then. And now I get I don't want to say, I get tore up on the media and social media, roads. I got over 300 miles of dirt roads in my district alone, and 200 miles under contract with private contractors who do it. And I get 1 mile a year of paved. Now, last year, this board was very generous, and we're able to pave Union all the way from Mariners Lake, which was an MSBU road, back over to Lakeview, and give those people in the West Putnam MSBU at least one road that they can get all the way through. But that's the reality. Mm-hmm. We got the biggest platted, undeveloped lots in the state of Florida. And, you know, for West Putnam, yeah, you moved on a dirt road. You should have known better. We all moved on a dirt road. But you don't realize the living on the dirt road till you move on the dirt road. Some people want their dirt road. Believe me, you saw social media all the time. People are tearing their dirt roads up. They get out here on the weekends and tear them up, think it's fun. But we have to live out there. And we have to have fire trucks, and we have to have ambulance. And those ambulances get stuck on those dirt roads. So if we can get much pavement to try to connect, and that's what I've been doing. We've been saying, okay, where are the problem roads, right, Mr. Stout? What are the problems? Where can we connect this road to that road? How can we maybe get the school buses to use this road if we pave it instead of going off and knocking down these roads? That's the reality. I didn't mean my people. It's not that part. It's passionate to me because it's important. There was no way that you're ever going to pave 95 miles of an MSBU district before anything else gets done. Because the argument I made was this: those people are paying sales tax, but yet they can't compete for this money. And that was the way it was going on. It's not the way it's happening today. Thank God for that in this board. But I'm going to tell you, years ago, had whatever took place, I don't know what happened with Public Works officials. But I can tell you it's not happening today. And we're finally finding new ways to get problems done. And I applaud y'all for doing that, because truly we can go now, like we did on 315, moving those millions while they were working and putting them in areas to reduce that. We're moving more people out of those areas than we've ever moved before. So there's my 2 cents worth.
All
Sorry,
right.
Julianne.
You're fine.
Are you done with this slide?
Yes, ma'am, if y'all are.
Okay, we're going to take a quick, I don't mean to be so whatever, but we're going to take a quick break.
I get a little passionate on that one. It's the truth, though.
Such a fun meeting. But we gotta keep going. We're not done. Well, that last comment, you need your space, apparently. Go ahead. Yep. It's all good. You're not?
You died? Well, we might not.
Was that speech you gave, Commissioner?
When you get to capital IT's got to have a problem.
Yeah,
They need new batteries.
maybe. You can go ahead and speak loudly, I guess, and then we'll just go from there, or,
Well, they can't pick her up on the
oh, you won't pick her up on the
recording.
recording. Touche. Yeah.
You dropped the mic on that one?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, capital improvement projects. Our capital investments are traditionally funded by all of our funds through the use of reserves, or what we refer to in our world as savings accounts, as we're not fiscally sufficient to cover the capital investments needed on a reoccurring basis. The only exception to that is our solid waste fund traditionally covers theirs through their operations. Our divisions have submitted their normal capital requests. We're still reviewing them and going through each of one of them. But this is an opportunity to talk about some of the board or general priority projects. Of those that we've talked about recently is your veteran services and information technology building renovations. Estimate going to need about 1.5 million. We have the Fairgrounds Expo Hall that's still outstanding, and estimate to complete about 7 million. Now, we have applied for an FDAX grant. We won't know where that stands until probably middle of next year, sorry. ERP system, my estimate for your total all-in cost is going to be about 5 million. Of course, the legislature just funded about 900 of that. And so we have a new Nutanix server that we need to be aware of, if not this year, in the coming years. This is our virtual environment. So in my world, the cloud, and I'm not your IT person, that's why they broke the microphone so they could come help me. So we can sustain the equipment for about 2 years if we pay a fee of about $200,000 per year. But at the end of that 2 years, the hardware is going to be completely obsolete and end of life and not supported. And so whether we budget that now or we look at that in 2 years, at some point we're going to have about $1 million, $1.2 million expenditure that needs to be made. The virtual environment does support every one of your constitutional offices as well as the board. So another project where we're talking about general impact, much larger than just your board functions. And then, of course, we need some board direction on your capital investment initiatives, the BOCC discretionary dollars. Are we funding them? To what level are we funding them? Better Place Plan. Again, historically, we've kind of broken them out into dirt to pave and resurfacing, taking a large percent of that BPP. Does the board have some guidance as to how we treat Better Place Plan going forward into 27?
Commissioner Harvey, you recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julianne, on the Fairgrounds Expo Hall, it's safe to say that we kind of started off with one building and it kind of morphed into a bigger building or something to that effect. And then we were asked to split that up as far as funding cycles, and we were not successful in getting funding. Is that correct?
So I wasn't with the county when the initial request was made. However, in reading the grant document, the building size is today exactly what was requested on day one. So I don't believe your building project morphed.
Right.
I do believe that a couple of factors happened. One, over the past I've been with the county 7 years, coming on 8. So over those years, think about your cost escalations in construction, where we thought we were going to have, you know, a building that we could get for a couple of $1 million has now, with today's prices, escalated into something that we can't touch for a couple of $1 million. So when we received the first allocation of dollars from FDACS, now originally, the guidance, my understanding from FDACS was apply for phase 1, then you'll continue to get phase dollars. Now FDACS is saying the opposite. Don't apply for phase dollars, apply for everything and get a total project. And so again, over the course of just probably, you know, shifts in FDACS leadership and their perspective and state money and how it's treated and looked upon, what we have is essentially a phase 1 of a building that we believed at that time we were going to be eligible for phase 2, 3, 4, 5 funding, and now we're being told, hey, you need to ask for it all at once, and it's either going to be there or it's not. And you can ask again if you want to, of course, but in the meantime, we are going to, in the next probably 90 days, be at the end of where these dollars are going to take us, and then that building project will be on hold until future funding is identified.
Yep.
Well, I think it's important for the public to know this wasn't something that we just decided to build without the money. We had promises that were made and that we felt very confident to move ahead of. I do feel like we're going to build the building. It's just going to be a matter of how do we fund it and how do we recoup the taxpayer money on the building once we start using it. So I think it's great for our community. Don't get me wrong, we need a bigger facility. The Fairground Expo Hall is, well, the current one is constantly being used. So I think there's a lot of potential and opportunity here. I just don't want the public to see, well, you started a project that you don't have the money for. No, we started a project that we had promises for, and then we followed those promises, and they delivered, they weren't going to be deliverable at that point. So, and that happens sometimes in government, and change of administration or change in theory, but we'll go back and we'll repunt. I'm sure we'll finish this building. I have no doubt that somehow we'll finish it. And then we'll have to recoup our funds back to our taxpayers somehow. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
What is the square footage of this building? Do you know, Mr. Grimes? I know you've been working on it.
17.6 roughly, 17,600.
17.6. Okay. Well, there'll be lots of opportunities. I do agree with you. I think there'll be opportunities for funding, and then after that, the sky will be the limit of what we could do with it.
That's right.
Okay. Here's where you guys get to set your priorities.
Yeah.
Oh, you're waiting on something from us?
So I've given a lot of information. Now's the
Now it's
interactive
our
part of the
turn.
meeting where you guys are going to
okay.
have to make some tough decisions.
Okay. Well, there's a couple things.
So the only thing we have left are the 3 initiatives that we're going to do in July. But in order to get to that, I have to hear from you guys on some decisions at this point.
Okay, so I'll probably be the unpopular one. I've been doing that role lately. Discretionary funds. While we have done great things with them, I think that we're going to have to reel that in. And that's just one of the things that I think is going to have to be cut as we go through the budget year. This is just me. I can only be one person. We allow ourselves $250,000, and while we have done wonderful, great projects with them, I don't know that they become the core things that where we spend the money on. So we have made great strides in making improvements at at our animal services, at Parks and Recs. But as we go into this budget year, I think that we're going to have to hold the line on. That's one of the things that we should probably reduce. What that number looks like, I mean, I don't know. You save $1 million if you just cut us all down to $50,000 a year. Nobody's going to want to hear that because everybody up here's got their own projects that they're working on and their own things and priorities. But at the end of the day, I'd rather cut our discretionary funds than I would rather than start cutting positions. And I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but I think it's a discussion that we have to have. So that's my first comment.
Madam Chair, can we talk about that?
Sure, go ahead.
Because, I thought about that the other night.
Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
That is the low-hanging fruit. The problem with discretionary fund is a lot of departments benefited from that. Parks and Rec, Fire, EMS, a lot of departments,
Animal
fairground.
control.
So it wasn't just money that we spent willy-nilly.
I agree with that.
And I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying that, these were needs that came to us. Mr. Grimes would bring a need for a fire system, drones or whatever the case may be, and we were able to fund that. And some of us were able to pool our monies together to make things happen like that. So things that we didn't budget for, we were at the fast track, and but it is a fund that I do believe that if you're looking at low-hanging fruit, that can go away. It's just, it's going to hurt some other departments that have things that they need immediately, and but they can always come back to us at that point.
Well, I
So-
think, I'll call on you just a second, Commissioner. As we go forward, we have to prioritize our spending on services that are considered core government. I really feel like that, and not that those things weren't needed and didn't help our community. At the end of the day, when we start setting the priorities, just as the slide says, I think that's the one thing that we can work on. Commissioner Alexander?
Both good points, my fellow commissioners. The benefit of the discretionary funds, it provides us some agility to take quick action to support those entities that fall under our purview. Again, we have all taken a portion of our discretionary funds and contributed those to priorities of our fellow commissioners that may or may not have been priorities to us.
And they all went to capital projects. Let me just say that. We don't
Right.
have, I want to say something. I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No.
and I don't normally do that, but we don't have.
Hold on, do I have the
event-
floor?
I know you do. We don't have
Hold on.
event money. We're not spending money on events. We're spending money on capital improvements.
100%, and that is the guidelines that are laid out for those dollars. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, those aren't spent willy-nilly. We bought thermal cameras, we bought safety items, speed signs, we bought the things that would benefit our community, the defibrillators for EMS. None of these things do anything other than try and help the community, and we put a lot of thought into them individually. Yes, we are all going to have to make sacrifices as our budgets are trimmed. I'm not discounting that at all. And I think that I don't want to lose the flexibility and the ability to act quickly to help our community, but I agree with you that we could see some reduction in those to help offset that, because we're all going to have to suffer. We're all going to lose something, and it's not by our choice. It's been mandated by the state.
Can I add just a little commentary here?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll make some difficult decisions, but remember, your discretionary dollars come out of general fund reserves, so they have no impact on my reoccurring tentative budget that needs to be set, to be frank.
Thank you.
Right? It's not as if we completely eliminated it, we could fund another department. I can't, because those are reoccurring costs. The discretionary dollars have always been funded from your general fund reserves, just like a one-time capital purchase is. So as you're having the conversation, just make sure you're weighing it with the impact, your return, right? What are you losing? What's the juice in the squeeze?
That's right. That's right. Thank you for that input.
Thank you. So, also, if we can just, I got out of order here, and we went right into commissioner comments, and you're not quite through with your presentation.
I've
But
still
I
got a
do
little
feel
bit.
like this is a good time to take public comment.
Okay.
So I'd like to take public comment, because as we're going to be making decisions, we need to hear from our constituency and people in the office.
Madam Chair?
Yeah,
Before we go there, if you don't mind,
sure.
I just need some help on the bottom slide here. So I guess at the next July meeting, we're going to set the maximum millage rate.
So I'll go through
Because
the
the
next
public
two.
probably needs to know at the
Okay,
time.
so your July initiatives is that we need to set the tentative and the final budget hearing. So we'll follow our traditional schedule, which will be September 8th for your tentative and September 22nd for your final, both at 5:05. In July, at that meeting, the last meeting, we must establish our max millage rate. That doesn't mean we can't go less than for a final adopted rate. It means we
Right.
can't go above a max millage rate. And then, of course, we have to adopt a tentative balanced budget. That balanced budget, I've said it 100 times, right? We can talk about priorities, we can talk about initiatives, we can have a balanced budget in July, we can throw it all in the trash can on August 1st and start over and approve a different balanced budget on September. We just have to demonstrate that we have the ability to balance a budget by the end of July. And then lastly, we need to not ignore the potential implications of reform that is on the forefront. And at the end of the day, as I said when we opened, for Putnam County, essentially, I believe all of our departments are core services. We don't have divisions that are events, right? And so we either need to determine if we're going to reduce services, and if so, which services the board believes are of less importance to the constituents. If we're not going to reduce services, then we have to find alternative mechanisms to fund those services. Now, that can be in our user fees, that can be in additional discretionary sales tax, surtaxes, that can be new assessments, non-value based. There's a lot of different mechanisms. That said, many of them require a substantial amount of work. They cannot be implemented overnight. And so it's important that we not wait too long in order to be prepared for whatever alternative sources that we're going to attempt to use to supplement the funding in order to sustain services.
Okay.
Now I'll go back to
All
your
right.
jobs.
All right, with that, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Please come forward.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Tom.
This is new for me to show up with a sympathetic ear. Man, this is not something you've asked for, and we're all going to feel it. I would strongly encourage you. This has been incredibly informative, but also very confusing.
Yeah.
Few people have the luxury that you have to have the support to ask the questions, to go over, and for people to make a decision that of such gravity. Even though you didn't ask for this, the burden is yours. And I would encourage you to go all the way with it, as the state has mandated that you do a 10% pseudo budget. You know, when you're talking 1.5 times more than that, it's kind of deceiving. And again, this isn't what you've asked to do, it's what they're asking you to do. The 20 I just did, you had a slide that showed the dollar bill, and that all the money you're talking about, you have 47% of the budget that you're looking to take $15.7 million out of.
Right.
Well, that total was, if I did the math right, $30,500,000. You're talking about taking half of that. Of course there's going to be user fees. Of course there's going to be people laid off. This is ugly. And if ever there was a time people needed to be together, it is now. No one's advocating, believe me, I want a tax break. Nothing I'd like better. But I sure want to know whether or not my quality of life is going to go down as much as I perceive it is. And the only way we're going to get that answer is if you guys put it out there. And yeah, you'll get blamed of looking what you're doing, and I think everybody will stand up. It's not you. It's a matter of being mandated. It's about home rule, something I've heard talk a lot. Never has there been an assault on home rule than what the legislature is trying to promote right now. And really, in this time of divisive politics, this is a time that everybody, we set that aside. This is people in Putnam County, regardless of your party. We're going to give it up. So the only way anybody's going to know that straight up before they vote is whether or not you put it out there. So I'm asking you, I'm encouraging you, and I sure as hell don't envy you. But that's the job right now. So I had a lot of other stuff I wanted to say and all, but it's all getting covered in here. But whether or not it gets disseminated, and these timelines the way they are, I think they're absolutely deliberate, so it's not disseminated in a time when people can understand. So I'm asking you, as a citizen, please do whatever you can to show the gravity of this in the simplest way. And the best way to do that during this process is, I believe, is a side-by-side. Having been a constitutional officer during the '08 fiscal crisis, I got to tell you, it was horrible not to have a choice to know whether or not you were going to be able to keep people employed. Of course, I don't want to be part of creating a panic. I'm undecided on how I'm going to vote on this. But right now, I know good decisions are not made with partial information. And it's very unfortunate that this has been done, that you're going to have to accept the responsibility for what, I don't understand why the state would do it in this way, other than consolidation. I think they clearly want, which means, we talk about in terms of, well, maybe a Pomona Park or a Crescent City or Interlochen, maybe they would not exist. I think we ought to look bigger. Maybe we ought to look at our counties. When you talk about things relatively, we're smaller counties. Are we just going to be forced because fiscally constrained counties or counties that have done things that have put in a bad way? Are we all of a sudden going to be forced? We're not Putnam. What, do we just become an extension of St. John's? I don't know, but I think when you think this through, when you talk about these cuts, and if we're not able, if our governing body is not able to put out a reality check on what this is, I think we're just waiting for things to happen to us. So I really do appreciate your efforts. I think it's, I can't believe that the people we send to Tallahassee would put so little thought before they put us in a position, you particularly, in a position. And I hope we all keep this in mind as we go forward and think about those things we lobby for, and maybe this will be the thing that'll end some political divide, because we're all, I don't care what party you're on, you're going to feel this one. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and if there's, and I do mean this with all sincerity, if there's anything I can offer and mistakes I know I had made, Commissioner Harvey's, I agree with you. I don't think anybody wants to create a panic, but I'm going to tell you the panic's going to come afterwards if people don't understand what it is going into it, and that'll be a place, I assure you, it'll be a lot more difficult than this one is that you're in right now. So anyway, best of luck to you. If there's something I can do, and I look forward to participating, and I'm going to be pushing, I'm going to be asking just for me to decide how to vote. I want to know, where's it coming from? Or if we are, if our whole model changes that every recreational activity we do, you have to pay for, well, I want to know that. And I'm sure you'll do everything you can to make that happen. Thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Third time's a charm. Thank you. Me personally, I'm not voting for this. I don't agree with it. I don't envy any of you guys. I've been here 12 years, and I have watched this commission truly bring this county forward immensely. You guys have done, and ladies, have done a fantastic job with our money. I just want to put that out there, despite what everybody else is saying, because they're not involved and they're just keyboard warriors. I want to keep my law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, animal services, county staff, veteran services, and libraries. I don't think we should cut any of it, because I personally, I don't use the veterans except for my homeless people, but personally I use everything else, and I want to keep that. I want to be able to call 911 and have somebody respond. I want a firefighter to come if I need it. And on another note, Mr. Stout is doing a fabulous job in Public Works. I just have to put that out there. I was looking at some old emails from Public Works, and I was thinking about all of these cuts. And of course, Public Works is one of the departments that is probably at the top of the list, but they're doing a fabulous job, so let's keep them there. I'm not in favor of paying Waste Pro an increase. Everybody knows how I feel about Waste Pro, and it's public. I'm not in favor of that. And the city should also pay their respective portion of the services that the county provides. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Come on up, Monica.
Was not expecting to speak today.
It's okay, you don't have to explain.
definitely
This is, we're trying to get something accomplished, so thank you.
So with his property tax relief definitely scares everyone. Us in fire rescue, even though we're one of those protected core services, it is going to trickle down and affect us. It's going to affect our ability to grow, provide services needed for the community, get new firefighters. Looking at our budget, the fire and EMS budget are separate. They're two different budgets. Fiscal year 26, the fire budget was 10.74 million. The MSTU at 1.1 mils brought in 7.12 million, which is a $3.62 million deficit. That money comes out of, like you said, the fire savings account or the general fund. EMS is 13.36 million, our operating costs for this year, and that comes completely out of the general fund. That's $24.1 million total. I would like to see a fire and EMS special assessment to fund fire rescue services. By doing that and eliminating the fire MSTU, replacing the fire MSTU with that could bring a net relief from the general fund of about 17 million. And if we're looking at the first year, the 15.1 million deficit on that?
15.7 in general fund.
Okay. That would definitely go a long way into helping bridge that gap and ensure that your fire and EMS services are fully funded. There's also other assessments that are based on property value or property benefit. You can do assessments on stormwater, wastewater, roads and bridges, and you're seeing other counties implementing that now. Wakulla County, I believe, they've implemented it. There's a couple other counties, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's definitely something that other city and county governments are looking at to fund those core services to help take that pressure off and leave money for everybody else without having to cut parks and rec and libraries and, and the like. So I just ask that you guys take that into consideration, if nothing else for fire rescue, to make sure that we're funding and continue providing good service to our citizens.
Thank you. I think there's a comment or question by Commissioner Harvey.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, thank you. You're not wrong there. I agree. And I was speaking to a high-ranking legislator, I won't mention his name, but they realize they're going to have to put tools back in our pockets to do the work that we're a political subdivision of the state of Florida. We're hand in hand. We do the things they don't want to do. So they're going to have to give us the tools, and maybe that's the fees to make everything whole or the essential services whole. Because you're right, it's going to hit everybody. And if we can do that. But then again, it's hard to preach tax relief when now some people aren't paying anything today, and you go to an MSTU system and they're fixing to pay, or an MSBU system, and now they're fixing to pay an amount of money. I'm not going to throw it out there what that could be, but we got 33,000 assessments, so you can do the math of what this is going to. I've done it for years. So I do believe we're going to see a shift in some of that as we go forward, if this thing passes the way, and I'm not so sure it's going to pass, because there's a lot more non-homesteaders in Florida than there are homesteaders. But we'll see how that goes. But I'm with Mr. Townsend. I haven't made my mind up yet either. We all want tax reform, but we want responsible tax reform.
Correct.
And that's the important part. And again, like I said earlier today, I dial 911. I want you there. I don't care about all this tax reform stuff. I need somebody there. And what are we going to put that number on a life at that point? We're not. So I appreciate you coming up and saying what you're saying, but they realize they're going to have to give us tools in the toolbox to make sure that we take care of our essential services.
Great. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks, Monica. Commissioner Newbold, you're recognized. Did you have something for her? I apologize.
No,
Okay.
I did not, but I appreciate her comments, and she kind of hit the nail on the head. And Commissioner Harvey used the word shift, and that's really what this is. This is a big tax shift. There are counties out there, some of these big counties that seem to be much more awash than we are, for sure. There's probably fat to cut, but I've had several people come to me and say, hey, I've looked at the departments you guys have. I've looked at your budgets, and what are you guys going to do? Where are you going to cut the money? Mm-hmm. And, we can, I don't know, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but we can, ask our constituents, what do you want us to cut out? And we'll cut it out, but it's going to mean, your roads graded less, your garbage picked up less, all these things, less library services. Maybe you don't have veteran services. I don't think there's anything that, most of us ran on this quality of life thing. Man, these are the basics. And, but I'm going to speak out of two sides of my mouth, because there is room for improvement in the way that our homesteads are taxed. I really wish the state government would have figured it out instead of making us figure it out. Because, we're going to be able to, we're going to have this loss in income, and we're going to have to find ways to make it up if we want to keep the same level of service we have now. And I'm afraid that special assessment tool is going to be probably what we have to use. And we'll have to be deliberate in that and thoughtful. But it's going to change who's paying those taxes. And it's going to hurt some people. So, yes, ma'am.
If you'll allow me to make two comments.
Yes.
I know we don't necessarily engage in public comment, but 2 points were brought up that I do want, because this tax reform is so new and there's so much unknown information. Will you put my screen back up for me? Two things. In the amendments that went through towards the end, the alleged protections for your public safety offices were removed. So there was some proposed language that essentially said you are not going to be able to fund those public safety offices less than a prior year. They gave two different scenarios of the year. And so that was removed. Obviously, we all know that our public safety is important. However, when you look at the screen, they're going to load up. Just so that you have in your mind, and speaking to what does it look like for me, if we're talking about $15.7 million from the general fund on average, now average meaning some are a little more and some are a little less, each one of your true Board of County Commissioner function departments, with the exception of emergency medical services, on average, take up about $1 million in the budget. So we could unfund 16 of them, or we can determine how we're going to offset the revenues, or your public safety divisions are going to see some type of impact. There truly isn't another place in the dollars for it to make sense.
Thank you.
Well, and that's where I was at with this, as we go into the new budget year, of not giving necessarily our percentage increase that we have given over the years before that, because I'll just say it, the sheriff's office takes 53% of the entire ad valorem budget. So I understand, I need him to come in and have an honest conversation with us. I need him and the sheriff's office to sit down and let's go over their line item budget. Do I think that he's doing anything wrong? I don't know. I don't think he is. I don't have a reason to think he is, but at the same time, we're being asked to make decisions on his budget, but we don't have the details of his budget. I don't know
So
if
I
he's
don't
got
know-
300 employees. I don't know if he's got 600.
I don't know that the state is ever going to impose that rule on any constitutional. I will tell you that in meetings with state leaders, their expectation is that we're going to have to tell the constitutionals to go to the gym, is what I was told, too. And the gym isn't fun. Again, what I was told by a state leader, right? And so essentially, although it's not necessarily, I don't believe they're ever going to say you can dictate how the funds are used. I believe that the state guidance currently is understanding that each one of those constitutionals, as well as the board, is going to see implication from it.
So that's where I was at in this year, and that's why my comment of holding the line, given the 3% COLA, and let's see where this thing, whether it passes in November or not. That's where my thought process was going on that. It's hard to give the sheriff's office their $2 million extra that they requested, because then now that becomes the new number. And so I'm fine with them getting I don't have a choice. They can get their 53% or whatever it is, the dollar wise. I guess I shouldn't use a percentage, the dollar. Whatever the dollar is, that's what it is for this year coming up with their, in addition to their 3% COLA. The 3% COLA that we talked about was, they gave us that number? Or did you come up with that number?
I calculated that based on their total personnel costs from last year to this year and checked with their budget officer, who told me a 3 to 7% was included in their personnel numbers based on, and they, like I said in the beginning, they have a tier for their COLAs. Now, everybody else's all the rest of the constitutional offices was a COLA. The only one who did not include a COLA in their initial request was the clerk. So I asked them for a number specific, and that's the number they gave me that would cover a 3% COLA for their staff.
So they would still be getting $34 million. So that's where I'm at with that. And while you're here, go to that other slide that showed certainty on it. So I'm going to open this can up a little bit. Commissioner, I'm telling you, Mr. Commando, this net impact from certainty, what I would like to see is that each board member gets a copy of that agreement, because, and then I need you to evaluate that agreement. I need you to see if, number one, they've met the deadlines that they needed to receive that credit, or check. It's actually a check, right? We write them a check.
Yes, ma'am.
I need to know, did they meet the deadlines? Did they meet the criteria that's in the agreement? And I want us to all take a look at that. There is some concern that they have, or that they are, and I know Clay's here, and if you want to talk about this, you can. If you don't, you don't, that's fine. But there was some discussion early on as to whether or not they met the obligation of their contract, which was to not be in litigation with the county. And they are in litigation with the property appraiser's office. That's still the county. So if they're arguing the methodology or the amount that's being charged, or I'm sorry, not charged, but assessed, then how is it, I mean, I feel like we're doing the same thing that happened with GP. So how is it that they get, we're going to cut them back a check for $1.3 million? I need this really looked at.
Have we already sent them the rebate?
No, sir.
Okay.
Because I need somebody, because at the end of the day, if they're in litigation with the property appraiser, are they? They're not? Okay, thank you for verifying that. But if they're not, he's saying not, he's saying no. Are they arguing the methodology? Oh, okay, well, I'll just shut up. But I was getting on my box. I just wanted to make sure that they are in compliance with the contract. I do want you to look at the contract.
You want me to check the deadlines?
Yep, and check the deadlines. And that they're following through their obligations, and we ask them for a certain amount of job growth. How can we verify that? I remember that was a big discussion whenever we negotiated it. But at the end of the day, we've got some new commissioners that weren't here at that time, and I think that they need to understand, even if it's not particular to this contract, but going forward, when we get asked as a board to give incentives, it's a long-term, this is for 5 years. So we never, when this was being discussed, we never thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have a property tax reform and we're not going to be able to, I mean, we didn't know what we were going to get into, and now we're having to deal with it. It's fine, we've already made an obligation, but I just want to make sure that they've fulfilled their portion of the contract and the obligation in the contract. I'm tired. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think along those same lines, maybe we should ask our attorney to also look at what Mr. Townsend just basically said. The rules changed. We had nothing to do with that. And would they be willing to, I mean, they got to take a haircut too if we got to take a haircut. We made a deal based on what we thought the future would look like. But it might not be that future anymore. And if that be the case, then everybody needs to be in the same pool here at this point. And my point is simply, we can't sustain this. We can't do what you've asked us, the agreement that we made with you based on this, because property values are not doing what they did. The legislators stepped in and cut the legs out from underneath us at certain times. So could we possibly revisit that? And I think that's something that we need to look at when we look at the contract. What is our callback? What can we do to protect the citizens of Putnam County at that point? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. All right, board, what else do you want to talk about? Yes?
You know, I have a question. So I want to ask this. Last year, we were able to go to the rollback rate. All the stars aligned, everything. Let's take property tax reform off the table right now. Let's just deal with what we got to deal with, and then we'll come back to that. Is there any way that you could see that we can go back to a rollback rate if property tax failed in November? If everything stays the way it is now, do you think that we could possibly stay with that rollback rate and give our citizens the benefit that we gave them last year? I know that puts you in you don't have a crystal ball and our chairwoman doesn't have a magic wand, but I was asked, what do I want? What's my priority? I'd like to go see a rollback or at least some type of rate decrease if we could.
So I can crunch any number you want.
I know you can.
It's going to depend on what you're willing to cut. And so that becomes the question. As we kind of go through this little exercise here, I'm telling you today that when I start the process, I've got $2.7 million of extra money to spend before the constitutionals take the first dime, before the external factors take the first dime, before I pay a new school board debt, before I'm giving staff a COLA, before I worry about contractual obligations.
At the current millage.
At the current millage. So if I cut that number, I still have to pay $1.3 million a certainty, or at least obligate it. I still have to pay the constitutionals increase at whatever level y'all approve. I still have to pay an extra $400,000 to the tax collector for the school board bond. I still have to pay for all of the other ancillary things that are additional costs this year that were not costs last year without additional revenue sources. So, sure, we can if we cut it somewhere else.
So let's just not use the rollback, and let's go to scenario number 2 with the cost of living only on there. Then what's our outlook then look like as far as keeping the millage the same? And can we fund everything right now with the cost of living and keeping, as the chairwoman said, everything the same right now?
At the current millage?
Yes, ma'am.
At the scenario 2 with your constitutionals?
Correct.
Yes.
So there is some glimmer of hope here, is what I'm trying to say. The sun's shining a little bit.
There's always hope.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if keep the millage the same, the 6.23 increase in property values, now everybody holds the line,
We will hold
takes
the
a
lines
breath.
with COLAs.
Our employees get a 3%. We still have the outlining things that we got to take care of, that we can take care of, and maybe we can take a big sigh of breath until we can figure out the next step at this point. Because you asked us what our priorities are.
And let me say too, yes. And remember, I don't have any state revenues at this time.
Sure.
So if all 5 of you look at me and say, my priority is to cut the millage, if we cut it by 1/100 of a point, then remember, when we set a max millage in July, all we're saying is we're not going to go above this millage rate. We're not saying that we can't go below it. So as those revenues come in and we shake out more hard expenses, it may be that I come back to you and say, hey, I've got 1/10 of a point, or I've got 100th of a point. It may not be that I get you to a rollback rate, just given the external cost increases that I'm seeing. But there's always an opportunity, and we will always work towards doing everything we can for that front. Now, in that same arena, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you that I want to be cautious about how far we cut the millage this year, because Senate Bill 4F is going to take into impact next year, along with potentially the implications of reform. So my same millage rate is going to generate 25% less revenue, and the implications of that bill are going to make it harder for me to raise the millage rate. So I've got compounding forces coming in the future. And so, not that we shouldn't do everything we can every single year to be as financially responsible as we can, but we also would be irresponsible if we're not thinking about more than just tomorrow.
My point is simply this: by the next meeting, we got to set a maximum millage rate. So we don't have a whole lot of time to put together the worst scenario in the world that could happen after November. So my point is, we got a couple scenarios here, and I think the logical one would be everybody try to hold the line.
Hold the line.
Make sure our employees have the COLA that they need, the living expense that they need, and then keep our millage pretty much the same. Just go, and then we can come with parallel budgets later down the road to say, okay, if this passes, but we've got a deadline of 2 weeks that we've got to sit down here. We don't have time to do all that. There's not time to put all that. Worst case scenario, the sky's falling.
So
We don't.
reform isn't going to affect us this year,
Yeah,
the year we're developing.
right.
It's going to affect us
Next
next
year,
year.
next
And that's
budget.
why I'm saying, although we can make adjustments to the millage this year and probably breathe easy, maybe not at rollback, but we can breathe easy if we make some small. We need to remember the implications that it's going to have
Sure.
on us next year. So, but you're absolutely right. By the
Yeah, I
next
just
meeting.
don't want, we work too hard to keep our employees, our men and women, our first responders. We finally can get people up to a level right now that we weren't able to do many years ago. And now for them to have a mass exodus because they're scared to death that they're going to lose a job, I'm not into that scaredness. I really think at the end of the day, cooler heads will prevail and we'll find a way through this navigation. But again, we are a political subdivision of the state of Florida. Let's not forget that. We're just not a county on our own. We are a political subdivision of the state of Florida. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized. I was reading.
I knew you said you were getting tired earlier, but I didn't know if you were sleeping with your eyes open.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Ms. Young, quick question. When we get, we've got these developments that are coming in, they've broken ground. I see the dirt work down there at Alford Farms. What are we averaging per impact fee per each one of those houses?
They're on water and sewer, so you're probably 14,000
Okay, and that's going to
to
be,
the respective budget, to the respective buckets that are restricted for which you can spend those dollars on.
okay, so that's kind of where I was going with that question. Perhaps that'll give us some relief if we can maneuver some of the monies out of those budget buckets that are existing and be offset by some of those, just to provide a small bit of a relief on that.
So careful with that train of thought, because impact fees have to fund expansion in service. Today's conversation is all centered around sustaining current service levels.
But expansion in fire and EMS,
Capital expansion, yes.
Okay.
I cannot fund personnel out of an impact fee. If we put on another ambulance that we've never had before, not a replacement because we've got 8 or we've got 9 and the 9th one needs to be replaced, we can't spend impact fees there. If we're saying, okay, we need 10, then yes, you could pay for that out of impact fees. But the humans that run that 10th ambulance cannot be paid out of impact fees.
understood.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
One more question in this scenario. When we ask our constitutionals, and we'll take the sheriff's office off of the board and just talk about, we've got the property appraiser, clerk of court, supervisor of elections. So you've got 26 budget, their 3% COLA, the scenario staff increased only, the appropriation and the requested appropriation. Why would we, under any scenario, give them more than what they're requesting? I mean, we go back, I had the same conversation last year. We talk about percentage, but at the end of the day, it's our budget to give. So if they're not asking for the full percentage, why do we give it to them? Both of these gives them, in clerk of courts, scenario 2 gives them extra 142. In scenario 1, it gives them an extra 89. I don't get why we do that.
So the asterisk there for the clerk of court is so that you know that he did not build in a COLA into his original appropriation request.
So is that the assumption on all of them?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The rest of them built in a COLA.
Okay.
But the clerk specifically in his request did not build in any adjustment to staff wages. So when we went back and said, okay, what would it be if we just paid for a COLA? The conversation with the clerk's office was, oh, we didn't know that this was going to be entertained. We didn't build one in at all.
Okay.
If we're going to give staff a COLA, it's going to be an extra 142. And so that's essentially where it would be. To answer your question, again, past precedence has been that we have done a straight percent, and that's your new allocation, because remember, again, we received those budgets before we received the assessments. And so it has been in some years that we've received a request and we've allocated more money to them that was then allocated or utilized through the operations of their budget. Board direction, whatever you want to do. Short story.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
When we first talked about using the percentage-based budget, I go back to when I remember saying these numbers are going to change based on needs. The theory was that they were asking for the same, basically as we grew, the numbers were basically being the same, but some years were nominally where one might be higher than the other. And I knew that those numbers should shift a little bit. We've never changed that formula, but we probably should. And you're right. If they're asking for less and we're giving them more, that we're just going to get it back at the end, and we're going to be back to 2014 when people stand up here with a big check and go, hey, I'm giving you back $800,000. Well, not necessarily. We overfunded and you cut some things and now you got some money back. And I'm not trying to dilute that conversation.
No.
I'm just trying to say, let's be mindful that those numbers probably should have changed a little bit based on needs and based on, like take supervisor election. One year they might have 3 elections one year, which makes that go up. Next time they might only have 2 elections or 1 whatever the case may be, to make that number go down. So that's when I had that thought about percentage-based budgeting, I knew those numbers would be fluid. So, thank you.
Well, I was the one who thought that scenario 2 is where we should go, and I'm still there, but while I do understand your comment on the clerk of court, I don't know why we would give any constitutional more than what they're asking for. But again, don't have final numbers. I understand what your point is. So I'm leaning on scenario 2, which gives them a 3% COLA for staff. And then we hold the line. And then if November rolls around and the reform doesn't happen, then we sit down and we go, okay, we got extra money, let's talk about it. Can we do that?
Of course.
Okay. Because I remember when we had the scenario at the sheriff's office, I mean, he had gotten his money, the sheriff's office, I shouldn't say he, the sheriff's office got their money for their annual budget. And then somewhere in the middle of the year, they needed a $500,000 HVAC system. They didn't have it. And then they had to come back to the board and say, hey, we got a problem. And we ended up funding that. That was in addition to their budget. Was that not correct?
That was this year, but
This year.
remember, we pay for all constitutional's capital projects.
Well, dadgummit. I'm just trying here.
I know. It's more fun news on my side. Anytime they have a capital need, any of them, not one particular one.
Okay.
That has to come through us. Our building and grounds goes and does the maintenance on every building that a constitutional office occupies. And so those are, their budgets are truly designed by statute to cover office operations, people and operations, not overhead. We pay the utility bills, we pay the electric bills, we pay the communication bills, we give them computers, we give them phones. We do all of the, what you would call business overhead, and they serve a function to the community.
All right. Where are we going? Is there a motion to hold for the,
Are we going to do that today, Madam Chair?
what do we need to do
We
today?
need to make some decisions today. So the first, since you guys are already here, do you want your July tentative balance budget to assume scenario 1 or 2? I'll break it down into lots of questions. How about that?
That'd be great.
Okay.
We need some direction at this point.
Okay, great. But you have to make a decision.
All right, let's move forward with this. I'll make a motion that we assume scenario 2.
You don't have to make a motion, you're in a workshop, you can just give direction.
Yeah, just give me consensus.
All right,
All
let's
right.
move forward with scenario 2.
Everybody wants that scenario 2?
Yeah. I think
All right.
I
I
don't
need
think we
a,
have a choice, but. to
And
be-
that'll be keeping the millage as close as we can.
well, we're at that, look, you're on it. So I need a max millage rate for the general fund.
Today?
You want
Yes,
that
sir.
today?
I would,
Yes,
Thought
sir.
you said we had until,
I have to prepare you an agenda item for you to formally adopt it.
I want
at
to keep the
next
millage
meeting.
rate what we're at today.
I agree
For
with that.
both fire and general?
For general, let's go one at a time.
Yeah, I'm not, I want to,
No problem.
We're just not gonna make that decision, so just.
So this is for her figures.
That's your initiative, right?
Yeah, we're
Is
we're
that
not
what you want
adopting
to do?
anything. This is our wish list.
Okay,
okay, so if we're going to keep the millage the same, then I think we need to look at,
Somebody else take this.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I got one down here.
Okay, good.
intention on max millage for fire. What is your
Okay,
intention?
so Madam Chair, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. So in my opinion, I really do think that we need to start, we've got the 12 positions, 4 people, 2 fire, 2 EMS. We need to be looking at, and I hate to say this, but we need to fund it properly. So we've been holding that 1.1 based on not putting municipalities over the 10%, and property values increased. But truly, with the town of Interlaken pulling out, that was a big concern of throwing them over. Crescent City is out. So I think we need to come back with and I don't know if we can do that today. I don't know if you're able to tell me 1.1 is good or 1.4 is good. I don't.
I'm having the same issue,
Good for what?
to cover their
To
expenses.
cover the expenses
and
that are-
And the anticipated needs
Right.
that
So-
we know of today.
So I'm not sure I'm able to throw that number out to you, but and then we got to look at what the other municipalities are. Are we going to throw them over the 10 mil cap by doing a 1.2, 1.3, 1.4? I don't know the answer there. Does that make sense? So do we have to do that today, or just can you come back to us and say, we hear you, you want to fund fire EMS?
Like bingo over there today. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's my understanding that these are tentative numbers that you're going to bring back for us to vote on. It could be 1,000, it could be 100, it could be 0.2. But in your best opinion, on the fire, we're at what, 1.2 now? 1.1. So if we made the adjustment today to take it to even 1.5, that gives us an indicator of where we're going to be, how much money we're going to have, and then we can make that decision when you bring those numbers back to us. I mean, we're having a lot of discussions about preliminary stuff that we don't have an actual number on. So let's just move forward with a number and move on.
Okay. Mr. Grimes, I see your
Yeah,
button's on.
so I can appreciate the talk about municipalities and where they participate or they don't participate. Can I just tell you, we got a service to run. And I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me what I do to somebody else's millage rate cap. I got to provide a service in the town of Palatka. I got to provide a service in the town of Interlaken. I got to provide a service in the city of Crescent City. We've got a service to provide. So, I mean, I get that we don't worry about their caps, but at the end of the day, we got a service we got to do.
It's not about worrying about their cap. Statutorily, we couldn't put them over. That was the whole problem when the first conversation arose. We couldn't put them over the cap, but that's statutorily. It's not based on what we might need to. But if we put them over the cap, then we violated their 10 mil cap. That was the problem, statutorily.
Sure, so they should go and provide their own service.
I get that, I do, but that's why that's why we've been able to keep, that's why we've held it low, but that conversation needs to go away now. We need to
Agreed.
take care of our fire EMS people immediately.
So if that's the case, does that mean we have to back out our 8.7?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Doesn't affect that.
So
Well-
if you'll allow, staff will bring you a recommended max millage, but it sounds like the board would entertain hearing justified reasons for why that max millage may be higher than the current year. Is that fair?
Yes, I would agree that's a fair
Okay,
statement.
great. When we talk
And I have
dirt
a
to,
question real quick on that.
Commissioner Newbold.
It's the special assessment process in this space or any other space. How does that work? If we decided we wanted to do that?
do a special assessment?
Yes.
The same way we've done it before. So we end up engaging a consultant, and the reason why is because a consultant has to gather all of the costs, then determine who the users of that cost are, and then fairly apportion them according to that. There's a public hearing process that goes along with that, and then you would adopt the assessment following the input from the public hearing.
Okay, just a question, because I think it's something we're going to have to think about for the long run, and maybe you skin the cat here with that.
Sure. As we build the July tentative budget, can the board give me some guidance on their priorities for BPP?
Well, I'm not necessarily a fan of getting completely rid of the dirt to pave. And I'll just go ahead and put this out there because it's been, I sat down with an MSBU group in my district and said, let's put together a 5-year plan because I want to save you guys tax dollars. Because at the end of the day, at 5 years, we can continue to knock their little roads out in their district and then in their MSBU, and then they won't have an MSBU. And then everything's done. And it saves them and it helps us because then we're not out there spending time and effort on it. And so we started that plan. So for us just to pull out and say, we're not going to do dirt to pave, I got a problem in my district. I'm just telling you right now. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with the dirt to pave particularly. I do understand the need for, and I do agree with purchasing the greater lease equipment. I do, what you're saying, Mr. Grimes, makes sense. And for me, everything has to make sense. So I understand that, and I'm good with what you had suggested on doing the purchase, the buyout versus continuing to have a annual fee.
I'd like to bring back some other alternatives
Okay.
before your next meeting, because I've actually spoke to some of the vendors, and they may have a unique opportunity for us to move different directions, but we need to know whether we want to really own them or we want to lease them, and where it may work out better for a scenario for us, but we'll absolutely do that by your next meeting.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
And I'm in agreement to getting rid of dirt to pave in my area, even though it's a mile a year, and it's going to take 300 years to make that happen based on simple math. Those people deserve a road. They pay a sales tax, and they also pay a fee to maintain their road. And I think it's unfair that we start the process and then pull the rug out from underneath them. I like what we're doing now. I like putting the millings down. I like the alternatives of that. But again, we're finally going to make a road, a hard road, all the way through the biggest West Putnam MSBU that exists, 95 miles. And if we can't get fire trucks through there, if we can't get our school buses to use that, I have no other funding mechanism other than to tell the people, do what we did. Pay $215 a year for 15 years and buy your own road. That's not fair, and it's not fair. So I know I'm a county commissioner countywide, but I do represent West Putnam, and I do represent those people that need a road, and I think the alternatives are great, but I don't want to get rid of our dirt to pave project. So there.
Anybody else? What else do you have that you're specifically looking for?
Was there consensus on discretionary commissioner funds?
There was not consensus. There was discussion about it. I do think that it's something, I brought it up. That's where I'm at. Go ahead, Commissioner Alexander.
When we're discussing these priorities, looking at our capital improvement projects, would those come under this topic as well, Mrs. Young?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I am I know we've got tough times ahead, but I am a huge proponent of our veteran services and our IT building renovation. I went to IT yesterday, and I saw what was basically inverted acne on the roof because it was falling in due to a water leak in one of the ceiling tiles. There's mold on the floor. That's not somewhere that I want to work. It's not somewhere I feel like they should work. Additionally, our veteran services bring in, I think the last number I heard was probably around $60 million, $50 million to our community each year. But I don't care if it's, $100 or $1,000. These folks have served our community, our country, and they deserve better than what they're getting now. So I think that that is truly a priority, those two items.
And we're going to have an opportunity as well as we go forward to go through the line item budget and figure out if there are other services we want to reduce or find alternative sources, that kind of thing. We're going to have that opportunity. This is our first meeting, but it's not our final to have that bigger discussion.
No, absolutely. Like I said, the tentative budget that we pass in July can be thrown out August 1st, and we can create a different one.
Okay. So when we talked about discretionary funds, you said that they come out of reserves anyway.
It does.
Okay.
So we'll table that conversation for today.
Yes.
Are there actions that the board would like staff to begin taking in order to prepare for the potential reform implications?
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I've been a commissioner, we really need to start looking at, and I referred to it earlier as profit centers, and they're not. They're just they're little county businesses, if you will, in my opinion. But for me, we need to look at permit and inspection because a lot of us are subsidizing water in certain areas. No one subsidizes my pumps when they run out. They don't. I don't build a permit, so why should I subsidize the permitting department? I've always said that maybe the fees need to be looked at where you hire a contractor and you get so many inspections, and if the contractor can't do the job right, then there's more fees involved. I think we got to start looking at the cost of doing business, but not on the backs of people who are not taking advantage of it. Naturally, libraries you're gonna see that. People use libraries in recreation, but I'm talking about the permits, the inspections, those user fees, utility fees. We want to get people off of wells or actually wastewater, but when we run pipe, there's a law. You got to hook into it. I know people don't like that, but they're getting quality water. They're not getting my lake water right now. Since the lakes are so bad in West Putnam, our water smells. I mean, when the aquifer goes down, it smells out in West Putnam. So I think we got to start looking at, does everybody need to subsidize somebody else's? And I say no. I say no on permit. I think we need to say, how much does it cost for XYZ to build a house? And this is what the permit costs. Get down to the real, maybe this is going to make us have the real conversations about what it really costs to do business. Do I want to charge people a boat ramp fee to launch their boats? I hope not. God, I hope not. I hope we never get to that point. But we might one day. I don't know that answer. But that's where I would like, that's number one bullet, was utility, stormwater, and maybe one day we need to have that talk about stormwater also. But right now, I think the low-hanging fruit is the permit and the inspection on that. So that's my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, I'm going to talk about something here that I want, and I'm not asking the staff to look at this right now, but I think as we go into the if the tax reform happens in November, then I think that we have to look at doing something similar that Leon County did, which they implemented a hiring freeze. And what that did was that created, it reduced discretionary funding. They began to look at their organizational structure. And I'm not talking about just the BOCC. I'm talking about all parties involved, all constitutional. Leaving vacant utilities, positions unfilled, delaying creation of new positions, requiring additional approval before hiring. Additionally, they also put on a travel freeze. If it's not needed, if it's not for essential training or anything like that, and it goes all the way down to tourism and economic development and all of those things, they all have to limit what they're doing as well. And so I think I'm just asking the commissioners, when you have time, to please look at the temporary hiring freeze that the Leon County commissioners put in position. And what it did was it allowed them not to lay anybody off. It allowed them not to, everything, they were able to reduce their cost and still be able to move forward. So I think it's something, not to scare anybody. I know nobody wants to have this conversation, but I think it's something we have to at least look at and have that conversation. That way you're not immediately eliminating any existing jobs. Again, I'm saying this when we get to November. I'm not saying right now. I'm saying if November the tax reform passes, then I think absolutely we got to look at doing what Leon County did, which was putting in a hiring freeze.
So what you're saying is Leon County created a potential solution.
It was a stopgap.
Based on that.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Commissioner Harvey, you recognized.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the comment. I do think that, I don't know the right words to use here. I think our constitutional officers look at their budgets every year and they look at what the needs are. So I'd probably stay out of their business and let them do that. But I do think we can look at our side of the house and set the example. And if there's something that they can do, fine. But I don't know if I want to drill down that far into their operations, because I do think they all run lean, and I think
That's the challenge here.
yeah.
We're all running lean.
Yeah, we're all running lean, but we can only manage our home, and I don't know if we can manage
I don't disagree. I know what your point is, and you're not wrong on that, but we are a fiscally constrained county. There's no plan in place from the state legislature as to how they're going to help us, and that's fine. And so they've asked us to reduce things, and we're going to have to take that initiative, but they're not just asking the BOCC to do it. My point is, that's what the legislators are wanting. They've said that in their House bills that Julianne mentioned today. They said they want this cut, and they want all of this information, which is fine. It's all public information. Put it out there, and you're right. We shouldn't be in a position where we have to ask our constitutional officers these questions. This wasn't my directive. This was a directive from the state legislature that said, hey, you guys need to do this. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, we got praised, and I'm going to say it again, we got praised, and we even played the video here that on the House floor or the Senate floor, where they said if all the counties were doing what these 9 counties were doing, we wouldn't be passing this, wanting this tax reform. And they named Putnam County. So while we've sat here and done everything right, and done the best with what we could, this is the position we're in, and we're going to have to deal with it. And so it's the tough conversation that we got to have. And so I'm just saying, look at it, and that if November rolls around, and it's up to the taxpayers, it's up to the citizens of this county and the state, and if they choose to want this, then we have to deal with the implications of it, and that includes some of the things we've talked about today. Those are my comments. What else do you have, Ms. Julianne?
I'm at the end.
Wow. Are there any other commissioner comments? Mr. Grimes, you have your light on. I'm going to let you go.
Well, I can remain silent, it's fine.
No,
I'm good. I just want to just so everybody kind of knows operationally, as we talk post-November, and this is nothing today, but hiring freezes work in some areas, but in like our fire and EMS world,
Absolutely, you're right.
we have to replace position for position. So it absolutely would not be a cost savings in that world, right?
I agree with you.
Unless we're going to shut a unit down, which I'll stand out front and we're not doing that, right? So
Right, we're not doing
just,
that.
we're going to need some kind of exemptions in there for
That's
that,
exactly right,
because
and that's what Leon
we're going to pay
County did.
150% of replacing somebody today, and we're going to work them to death, which gets back to
Right.
where Commissioner Harvey was earlier today, when we don't want to go there.
And that's why I said, look at what Leon County did, because they
Okay.
did have those exemptions in their
They
ordinance.
did, okay, very good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I truly believe before we got to that point, we'd have much more conversation in this room with you five.
All right. Commissioner Alexander, we're going to go through commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Alexander. You already
Yeah,
got
let's
your-
just go ahead and get it done.
Go ahead.
You know, the most unfortunate part about this is, you know, like you said, we've received accolades, and our staff has received accolades for doing the right thing and being fiscally conservative. And unfortunately, with us being a small community and the majority of our homes falling below the threshold for that homestead exemption,
double.
it's a double standard, and we're paying the price for it. And we ask these questions, our constituents don't, we ask these questions to our legislators. You know, we know the destination, we know where you want us to go. Provide us a map to get there. Tell us how we're going to do this. We've asked that for 6 months, a year, and nobody has been able to provide, well, we might do this, or not even a hypothesis of how we could potentially fund that. And, you know, they're pulling the pin out of the grenade and handing a political pin out of the grenade and handing it to us and basically telling us to figure out how to make their plan work. And it's aggravating, it's frustrating, because we've done the right thing. And it's very frustrating.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Newbold.
I don't have a whole lot to say other than what I've had already. We're going to find a way to get there, whether it's, you know, special assessments or all these little creative odds and ends. But, you know, we will get the pulse of our constituents. We're going to find out what the priorities are, and we're going to, you know, 5 years from now, we might look back and go, wow, you know, we're in a better place than we were, but it's going to be kind of tough getting there. And I appreciate all the insight that we get from staff and fellow commissioners, because, I mean, we'll be all right, but it's not going to be any fun in the meantime.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, that's it.
Commissioner Harvey, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to put a positive spin on this. I think this has been one of the healthiest budget talks that we've ever had starting out the gate. It's been the most lively. It's been the most thoughtful. It hasn't just been, okay, let's move forward and get it over with. We have some real challenges, but we're a community that can face the challenges.
Right.
We're 5 strong people up here that can understand budgets. We have the greatest staff, and I think throughout any county government, I will put our staff up against any of them. I think we'll all come together at the end. I think that we'll see our constitutionals put their heads together, and we'll come up with a budget this year, and we'll keep our employees. We will not scare everybody to death, and we'll move forward. And if property tax reform comes, then we've got to be honest with our legislators and say, we're a political subdivision of the state of Florida. You've got to give us tools to take care of the services that you wanted. Remember, the governor had a carve out for us. He had a fund for us.
He did.
It didn't happen. The legislators took that away from him. The governor didn't get what he asked for on this. So he's not even campaigning for this thing. So do I think it's going to pass? I don't know. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to look at our situation and vote based on what we want from local government. We know what we want. Go to Publix, go to Walmart tonight. I guarantee you, go tonight. Somebody's going to stop you and say, fund my library, fund EMS. I want another fire truck over here. Response time wasn't fast enough. I want this. They tell us what they want. We know what our constituents want. They want parks. They want things to happen. They want their garbage picked up. I mean, poor Jay gets called every day just about. Somebody paid for a service and they want that service. I don't blame them for that. So we're from here. We're intelligent people. We've got the most dedicated, highest ranking staff I could ever imagine. And we're going to come out of this. And we're going to be better for it. And I agree with you, Mr. Newbold. We might look back in 5 years and go, this was the best exercise. It was painful. Man, it hurt. I just took 2 Advil and 2 Tylenol. But we're going to get through this. And I have the best optimistic idea in the world that we're going to come out better than what we started at. And again, folks, I'm not trying to make this light. This has been the most lively budget discussion day one that I've ever sat in, and I love numbers, and you know that. So it's not all gloom and doom. We got to know where our baby's ugly at, and we can clean it up and move forward at that point. So, Madam Chair, thank you for this conversation today.
Thank you. And before we go to Commissioner Pelletier, I do want to apologize. I did not state why he came in late or why he wasn't here earlier. He is our canvassing board member, and there was a logic and accuracy test which was required for him to be there. That's where he was, and so thank you, Commissioner, for ending one meeting and coming to this. And sorry you're catching it at the end. I'm sure you can go back and watch our conversation, but do you have any comments at this time?
I have a couple. For the record, logic and accuracy is perfect. So, Larry, you're going to get a fair shake, whatever it may be. Mr. Commando, in the event that this thing passes and it's a train wreck and 3/4, is there a method or a way to the voters or the people of Florida to put it back on track?
I think there's probably many ideas of what will come forward. Everything from subsequent elections. There's discussion of a special session through the legislature, which I imagine would solicit some public comment. I don't know if you're looking for something specific, but I think if it does pass, there's going to be a long road ahead of all local governments.
I'm just wondering, at a state level, is there anything that they would jump in and say, "Oh God, we didn't know it was going to be like this. We got to bring this back." That's what I'm asking, I guess. If that makes any sense.
I mean, could they subsequently pass another joint resolution that takes a look at what the homestead exemption thresholds are? I guess they could. I don't see that as a realistic path, but I guess it's always a possibility.
Thank you. As good as you can do, I guess, at this time. I understand. I think we've all gone through personal budget crisis in our life, in our personal households. I know I have. And you just cut yourself short of whatever you really want to make it happen to get to the goal you're looking for. And that may be just, that's kind of a crazy blanket term, but that's the only way I can put it, and is how I dealt with it myself on that level. I'm like Larry, and I'm like Mr. Newbold down there. We're going to get through it. It may not be pretty, but we're going to survive. The sky is not totally falling, but I'm not happy with it. I use the term "the devil you know," and this is the devil we know, what we've got right now. And everybody wants cuts. Who doesn't? Good Lord, yes. But you know where you are now, and I think, in my personal opinion, the cuts are too drastic initially. It's not taking any baby steps. He's whacking it pretty hard for personal reasons, I think. But I think I know we'll survive. We'll make it. We'll tighten that belt, and we'll do whatever it takes to pull through this, and we will make it. We're a good team. We look out for one another, and I'm not talking about this board of 5 or this staff. I'm talking about all of Putnam County. Mm-hmm. I think all of Putnam County looks out for each other. Really, they do. And I think we'll make it. Might not be pretty, but I think we will make it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This has been a good discussion. Not easy, but certainly a good discussion. We brought up some very good points here. I would encourage everybody in this room and everybody listening. We have on our webpage under transparency. We look forward to the next one, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more numbers and directions at that time. Is there anything else to come? Oh, I'm sorry, Administrator Suggs, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Hit the wrong button. It's been a long day, hasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Don't want to hold this anymore, but I would like to say one thing. I'd like to thank the folks that showed up today
Me
to
too.
have conversation from the public. You know, because we haven't had a lot of that, honestly, in the last 8 or 9 years. But today we did, you know, and I thought their comments were very much on point. And take the opportunity, I called her the other night, and I'll say it again today. Your union president, Monica Weaver, who's sitting here today, Ms. Weaver did a great job on supporting U5 and what we've done as far as a staff on what we've done with the budget over the last several years. So I think that word is out there, I really do. And for those that don't know, I'm sure there'll be some more conversation about it. But you know, when you have those folks out there that are going to bat for you and talking about how you've done it right, not only in Tallahassee but locally, I think that's very important. And we'll make the right decisions. We always have, we always will. And the last thing I'll say is I appreciate U5 allowing my staff to have those honest conversations on the record in the public with you. Sometimes they're very direct, very blunt, but what they're always is very honest.
Yeah.
And I think U5 appreciate that because you know where they're coming from. It's a matter of speaking from the heart and speaking the truth. And so we'll get through this. We will. But I think November is going to hold a different set of cards for all of us. We don't know what that is yet. We've met with our local state official last week. Don't know if I appreciated some of the comments, but you know what? We'll deal with it. And we always do. And I think you guys said it right. We're a little different here in Putnam County. We support each other.
Yep.
So I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before I adjourn, I do have item 7 is public comment on miscellaneous items. So since it's on the agenda and this is a public meeting, is there anybody who wishes to come and speak on miscellaneous items? All right, hearing none, we'll go to adjourn this meeting. Y'all have a good day.